running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
And God bless America. Calm before the storm.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Here's the moment you've all been waiting for. Here is Devolution.
Devolution.
With Patel Patriot.
The best is yet to come.
Congrats on this. I like this show. The Power Hour. That's got a good sound to it.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour, and welcome to the Altered State crew. It looks like we just got raided, which is cool. Thank you for whoever initiated that, probably Zach.
This is a Zach psyop, and he proceeds to take credit for whatever viewership the next show does when he does this. So this is how he's trying to grift.
We'll take it.
I respect it.
We'll take it. Thanks, Zach. They always do a good job on that Altered State show, so if you guys don't watch that, you should. But how are you guys doing? It's hump day. Yay.
Yeah.
Doing well.
It is a hump day. How are you Starlinking or Xfinitying tonight?
Xfinity.
Co-host?
So far, it's so good.
Kyle had some of the worst internet I've ever experienced as a co-host on Sunday
night. And then I had it again this morning when I was streaming an episode.
Was it worse than mine for the Liberty Den last week?
I don't know.
Yeah, because Kyle, at least you just got grainy a few times, but Kyle's would just stop. It was like Starlink would be crystal clear and then stop. Xfinity was just like looking at a checkerboard. But yeah. I floated it just like I plan to float this one tonight.
Interesting. Yeah, it must be those solar flares, I bet, causing issues with the infrastructure. I looked at, it was actually today, I think, I looked at getting Starlink, but then I saw the price. I was like, no, never mind. Kind of spendy. But anyway, we got lots to talk about tonight. We have a pretty interesting clip from George Stephanopoulos and his new book. I can't wait to talk about this one in particular because it obviously has to do with continuity of government. So that should be a good discussion. We have lots of Trump, Biden narrative polling things to discuss. We got some Ukraine stuff to discuss. We'll see what else. We'll see what else happens. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of in like a shit mood and have been all week. So I'm hoping Kyle at least could cheer me up a little bit. I know Burning Bright. There's no chance of that. But
I'm convinced there's something going on. I don't sleep a lot, as I've said. And then last night I slept like 10 hours. And I feel horrible today.
Isn't that weird?
So maybe it's like a catching up type of thing, but sleeping really throws me off.
I don't know. You try to find that like when I have my kids, like I just slowly die a little bit more inside throughout the week. Like I have them for a full week straight. And it's like, okay, by come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, after getting like 4 hours of sleep or so, it kind of adds up. But then you try to recharge, but recharging, like you said, feels like shit too. It's like you just always feel like shit. It is what it is. It's the info war. That's how it goes. But anyway, before we get into any of that, let's get to our first sponsor of the evening. We have, I should probably figure out who that is. Looks like Easy RX. We constantly talk about health and different ways that we can help. We get so many questions about those medications out there, like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, fenbendazole, and where you can get them. And that's why we've partnered with EasyRx. They have a huge selection of meds at badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx. You can also click on the link in the description box below this video and use promo code Badlands for 10% off your order of $150 or more. Not only do they have a huge selection, but they also have quality assurance, big savings, and fast shipping. And speaking of fenbendazole, they've tested it on worms and parasites that can live inside of you without obvious signs and can lead to health complications from bowel obstruction to loss of appetite, weight loss, anemia, lung infection, liver congestion. But more importantly, fenbendazole has been studied to help with cancer. And we actually have some testimony from Joe Tippins.
My liver, my pancreas, my bladder, in my bones, it was everywhere.
Joe Tippins says he was told to go home, call hospice, and say his goodbyes. The doctors were unanimous. He was going to die of small cell lung cancer.
Once that kind of cancer goes that far afield, the odds of survival are less than 1%, and the median life expectancy is 3 months.
Tippins says he got a tip, not from a pharmacist, but a veterinarian. And in his desperation, he turned from people medicine to dog medicine. Specifically, fenbendazole.
Truth is stranger than fiction, you know?
Just 3 months later, Tippins says his cancer was gone.
My insurance company spent $1.2 million on me with traditional means before I switched to a $5 a week medicine that actually saved me.
All right, badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx. And I want to start off with, I don't know, should we start with the COG video or should we work our way into that? Because that's like, it's like a pretty big thing. And maybe we should save it for like our second part.
All right.
Whatever.
That makes sense.
Okay. Well, maybe let's start with, gosh, I don't, there's like, okay, let's start with this. What were you going to say?
I was going to say we should do the COG video because that's going to be what you want to do the entire show. And you're going to constantly try and move us on from whatever topic we're geeking out about.
Good call.
Before we get to the COG video.
We
might as well just do the COG video so you can rant on it, riff, whatever you're going to do.
You convinced me.
You would make an excellent substitute teacher, Kyle.
That's some great logic.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got this video. George, this is the full clip. I clipped it down. Actually, you know what? Let's just watch my clip. That's the relevant part anyway. Hold for processing. Okay, here we go. So he wrote a book called In the Situation Room, and it's a whole bunch of stories, not just of Trump, but of a bunch of different presidents and like interviews and their time and situations from the Situation Room. And I actually went and bought this book on Kindle or whatever, so I could look at it on my phone, so I could read more details on this story we're about to see. He has a whole chapter on Trump, but this story that we're about to hear about is only from the prologue. Like there's 3 pages of prologue. This gets brought up in the prologue, and it's never mentioned again throughout the rest of the book. It's fucking weird as hell, man. Don't understand why, but this is, in my opinion, I guess I don't know. Let's watch the video and then we'll talk about it.
What was going on in the Situation Room that day as rioters were storming Capitol.
Harrowing. It was a harrowing day inside the Situation Room.
Also, I had to listen to that like 4 times because I thought he said heroin the first time. Like heroin, lots of heroin in the Situation Room.
Well, probably that too.
Yeah.
Harrowing. It was a harrowing day inside the Situation Room. I talked to a duty officer named Mike Stiegler, who it had been his dream to work in the White House, and he was on duty on January 6th, getting real-time reports from the Vice President's Secret Service detail about how much danger the Vice President was in. He and his colleagues started to implement the continuity of government operations. People may not know what that is. Those are the executive order first implemented by Dwight Eisenhower to figure out how the government could survive a nuclear attack, and putting everything in place, so the line of succession, safe spaces for people to go to. They started to implement those procedures. It had only been done once before on 9/11. They were implementing those on January 6th, dealing with a crisis inspired by the President of the United States.
So Stephanopoulos in this book gets, he interviews this Mike Stiegler guy, and he says that on January 6th, they were actually in the process of implementing continuity of government protocols. I mean, obviously, Devolution, my series, is all about continuity of government. And I've been going back and forth trying to figure out what this could possibly mean, because I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think if devolution is in play, I don't think even Mike Stiegler would be aware of it, especially to the point of him discussing this with Stephanopoulos. And if he is aware of it, maybe he was aware that discussions were being had, that this could be taking place, but he wasn't involved in this conversation. So then I'm like, okay, well, why would he be discussing this, period? Like, why would, are they trying to seed this? Because I don't view this as confirmation necessarily. I don't think this Mike Stiegler guy, he's definitely not pro-Trump. If I read the prologue, and maybe I'll read some quotes from, because he's definitely not pro-Trump. He calls him like super disorganized, all these things, like totally hates him. But why would he be doing this? Are they trying to seed a narrative? Are they the ones that are going to end up disclosing continuity of government being put in place? But if there were alternate discussions of continuity of government being implemented on January 6th, it's interesting because maybe that is the trigger date of when this all went down, and he was like hearing whispers of it. The Stiegler guy, who's, I think he has to do with Mike Pence. I think he was in his service. but maybe that is the date, because we've always like discussed, was it December 7th when they issued Executive Order 13961, or were they waiting for a triggering event? Was it November 3rd, the night of the stolen election? Was it January? We don't know. We do know the COG level was raised on, or lowered on the day before Trump left office on January 19th.
Yeah.
And that was it went out to thousands of devices of government employees. So there's weird stuff going on here, and I want to get your guys' takes on this. And I don't know. I mean, I almost see this as like the mainstream media, in a sense, seeding this thing, and they're going to be the ones that disclose. Because I don't think I've heard discussion of continuity of government from the mainstream media since middle of 2020. COVID stuff. I think it was ABC did this whole 10-minute special report on Trump's secret powers that nobody knows about, and the PEDs and all those things.
And
I don't think I've really heard.
As you've gone into.
What was that?
Newsweek did articles about that you've cited before, I think.
But the most recent one, I'm pretty sure, was the report about the PEDs that I think it was ABC did.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first I've heard a mainstream anybody discuss continuity of government in any fashion ever. And I've been trying to rack my brain on what could this be? There's no way that this guy's disclosing continuity of government, the Stiegler guy. He's definitely not part of any plan. And I don't know. I mean, is it just Stephanopoulos trying to paint a picture and just totally full of shit, pulling this out of his ass? Or is this some sort of narrative scene? I mean, I'm curious what you think on it. Let's have a little discussion on it.
Well, it sounded, isn't it the situation that this Stiegler guy is describing to Stephanopoulos how bad January 6th was? So did he include those pieces of information as a means of conveying just how bad, how severe, how dangerous January 6th was? So I think that's him enhancing the January 6th narrative that their side is pushing.
Do you want me to read some of this?
But it doesn't mean he's wrong or he's incorrect that those things weren't happening. But I think that would be the motive, the context of what he's telling Stephanopoulos and why he's telling Stephanopoulos those things. And just one more comment before if you want to read that, that's fine. But one more thing I want to say that popped into my mind is that perhaps it's not so much him knowing for sure that continuity of government operations were begun and things were being clicked into place for COG. Maybe it's that he wasn't told that, but he perceived it because he was familiar with what would happen if that were to be engaged. Yep. So he picked up on those things and knew that COG had been implemented in some way to some degree, but he doesn't know any specifics or who gave the order or he doesn't know anything about it. He's not part of it. He just noticed certain things changing that are cogent with that point towards that being done.
Yeah, let me read some of this, because note the bias here and how they try to paint Trump as like incompetent and all these things and wanting to take part in the insurrection. It's a few Kindle pages long, but I think it's worth it. And feel free, guys, honestly, interrupt me at any point. Thousands of his followers had come to Washington at his request to stop the certification, and no one knew for sure how the day would play out. Situation Room staff was on alert, monitoring events, synthesizing public information and private intelligence, and preparing to report to the president. As they did with all crises and domestic or foreign events, they might require his attention. But on this day, they never called him. He didn't call them. The president himself was the cause of the crisis. This doesn't feel right, Stiegler thought as he began his shift. An intelligence analyst in his 30s. He was thrilled in the summer of 2019 to get the call into service into the Situation Room. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. All morning, protesters flocked to the ellipse. The grassy oval expands just south of the White House. At noon, President Trump stood in front of his edgy and excited supporters and called on VP Mike Pence to send the vote back to the states. He claimed that the radical left Democrats had stolen the election. He urged the crowd to fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And then he told them to march down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol. Trump wanted to join them, but his Secret Service detail refused to take him. And skip ahead a little bit. He talks about the gunshots that echoed through the corridors and smashing windows and all the bullshit. Back in the Oval Office, President Trump sipped Diet Coke as he watched the spectacle on television.
Dastardly? Did he dastardly sip it?
Yeah, I wonder if it was
just or contemplatively.
And it doesn't say. It just says
Or
sipped it.
furtively, perhaps.
Aides and allies implored him to condemn the riot and call off the mob. Instead, at 2:24, with the violence raging, he sent out a tweet calling out Mike Pence for lacking the courage to do what should have been done. With reports coming in from the Secret Service and other officials on Capitol Hill, the Situation Room scrambled into action. Things got very chaotic, Stiegler told me. We went into a continuity of government situation. Stop there. Take that phrase in. Continuity of government situation. That bland bit of bureaucratic jargon masks a deadly, serious set of policies and actions first ordered by President Eisenhower at the height of the Cold War. COG was designed to ensure the government would still function after a disaster such as nuclear war. It involved secret command centers, the sit room being a critical one, elaborate chain of commands, the relocation of Congress, and the replacement of executive branch officials killed in attacks. It had been activated only once before, in the immediate aftermath of September 11, 2001. The situation was surreal, said Stiegler, but he was wary of disclosing more. I have to be careful, he told me. I've been giving a lot of testimony, and I don't know where the lines quite are. I ventured that one of his points of contact must have been Secret Service. He paused and said, that's fair, which meant that he was getting real-time updates directly from the chaos in the Capitol building as the mob surged through the halls. And that's another thing. I looked for testimony he might have been given. Like I thought January 6th committee, or couldn't find anything on him. You can't even find any information on this guy. So I just don't know.
Yeah, it's juicy to me. I mean, it's if I'm trying to project what I think they're trying to project here, the other side, when you say, we mentioned this obviously prepping for the show, in the last couple of days, the idea of them, the other side, ceding continuity of government. Let's play with that as a hypothetical. The question becomes, why would they be ceding that idea? Kyle, you mentioned that obviously this is coming through literally a dramatic retelling, a story being told about January 6th. Yep. The reason it's being published in 2024, obviously during the election cycle, they're trying to project January 6th chaos. That's the context, obviously, in which continuity of government is being brought up. The fact that the way that's written, that they tell you to pause and focus on that, and then they do quite fairly give you a very broad overview of what this is. This isn't the media just throwing a line in, continuity of government, that's how bad it was getting. They tell you that, by the way, this is a real thing that's been done before. Eisenhower, a lot of the things that you were diving into and that everybody dove into through that research years ago. So they seem to be genuinely seeding the same concept we're talking about. They're not just saying COG and they're meaning something completely different. They're using it in the context of J6. I saw somebody in chat say this regarding Biden, but my first thought as to why they would be trying to educate the audience about this, if we dismiss Patriot Ghost in the Machine being involved here, is the Palpatine paradigm stuff we've talked about regarding Joe Biden. Whatever happens in November 2024, some of us think that we're going to overwhelm the fraud. Some of us think that it's not going to, they're going to steal it again, but we all seem to be in agreement that Donald Trump is going to be sworn in January 2025, no matter which way November goes. We're also in agreement, I think, that the other side basically cannot allow that to happen. If it's within their power to stop that from happening through election fraud or anything else, they will try to stop that from happening. So I think they're throwing a lot of things at the wall here. They're going to try to steal the election. We all agree with that. They don't know if they're going to be successful. If they do steal the election, they don't know if that's going to matter in terms of the military getting involved or Trump being sworn in. Are they going to try to swap Biden out in a change of batter type thing? They've got all these scenarios, and I really do believe that one of them is a last-ditch psyop to convince the American people that Donald Trump is the one engaging in election fraud or is guilty of treason or MAGA extremists are in the streets, and they are ceding continuity of government to say, we're not going to allow a terrorist and an extremist coalition within the United States, i.e. MAGA, to take control. I feel like it's their break glass in case of emergency narrative. Joe Biden's going to remain the president, continuity, and maybe this is them trying to seed that into the public. Do I think it would work? Absolutely not. But are they trying to play with the idea of, hey, we almost did this because MAGA tried to throw an insurrection or perform an insurrection in 2021. So the next time they try might be 2025. And we need to be ready to sell this narrative to the public that we're in a continuity of government situation. We're trying to figure out the chain of command, all that kind of stuff.
Didn't we have some article not too long ago where they were talking about this, like what Biden could do to stop President Trump?
There was actually. What's his name?
There's been multiple articles on this. Like
there was a recent
Congress
one.
could do stuff. Maybe
Carl Bernstein, was it?
If you're seeding a narrative, like this seemed pretty lame, pretty tame.
It wasn't amplified very much.
No, it took me like 4 days. As somebody had tagged me on Twitter, and it was a 4-day-old clip, and nobody was really talking about it. It was a very piss poor job of seeding the narrative, which maybe that's a sign that it's not a ghost in the machine thing. So I feel like if it was a ghost in the machine, Patriot and control type situation, it would have been seeded and amplified and boosted, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of this, but I don't see them. I don't see them going there. I think they have to cancel the election altogether in order to. If we have an election, there's no way that they can spin that in any way.
Yeah.
That anything other than Trump won. I mean, the polls right now are insane. Everything. There's no way that they can spin that, which I think is the point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they're going to allow that to happen and then go into like a continuity government thing and say, "Oh, Trump won by 50 million votes, but he stole it. They were all fake, so we're just going to implement." I don't think that's
actually you just made me think though. I think that makes sense. That's probably more, it doesn't really make sense they try to institute COG narratively after the election, but made me think of Ukraine.
Well, we're getting there. We were going to get there next.
About the election?
Yeah, I have the. Okay. We'll just play it now because I have the video pulled up. This is the one you're talking about, right?
I'm not sure, but yeah.
Working with the government and civil society groups to shore up Ukraine's election infrastructure. That way, as soon as Ukrainians agree the conditions allow, all Ukrainians, including those displaced by Russia's aggression, can exercise their right to vote. People in Ukraine and around the world can have confidence that the voting process is free, fair, secure. Working with the government. And
so this is exactly what I was thinking of, and this is the trial run. This is the narrative and actual test run. The key little fragment he says there is, when conditions allow, there will be a Ukrainian election. So right now, they're saying that Ukraine is de facto in a continuity of government situation. And that because of that COG situation, they're not going to hold elections. And they're trying to sell that to the American people as necessary. So to your point, John, about canceling the election, it would probably be a COG scenario implemented before November.
I do think there's a difference here between the two. Like the COG that we see or believe is taking place is a lot different than them postponing the election and indefinitely until the war is over and everybody can vote. But what I could see them doing here in the United States, similar to what they're doing there, is all these narrative seeding they've been doing with our infrastructure and the ports and China constantly hacking our stuff. I think, what if we see something like that close to the election, that like, oh, we can't trust our machines to count the votes now.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, we're going to wait until we're confident that everybody's vote will count. So we're going to have to wait. You know what I mean? They've been seeing that narrative like crazy. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Not that it's about Ukraine, but that some sort of crisis would allow them to implement the same template that Ukraine is, which is when conditions allow, like you said. And yeah, it could be they've probably got in game theory, both sides are playing. Both sides are playing the game and mapping things out. It could be China cyber attacks. And when we say these things, we're saying the narrative could be China cyber attacks. It could be infrastructure damage. It could be a terrorist attack. It could be a state of war, whatever it is. It does seem like their only possible unsuccessful way is to delay the election. They couldn't come right out and say, we're canceling the election or anything like that, but
yeah,
they could maybe try to sell some people that they're going to delay it.
Kyle?
I'm going to say that this Stiegler guy in Stephanopoulos, that Stephanopoulos just wanted a good story for his book, and Stiegler picked up on some things. It was congruent with COG that people were being moved around, high value individuals were being moved around and secured on January 6th. So the guy was like, you know what, I'm just going to make it out like it was like this huge COG event and we were in so much danger, we had to implement COG. So he says all those things, and it's all narrative, or it's mostly narrative, right? And it's not being seeded. It's not a white hat thing. There's no scheme here by Stephanopoulos or the media to introduce this idea.
It's a coincidence.
It's a coincidence. However, the guy's right.
Mm-hmm.
And what the guy picked up on is right, and it's real, but they don't realize the extent of it or what's going on.
Yep.
But in a way, it is a devolution notable, and it's a feather in your hat and a credit to your work.
Well,
that's what I think right now.
I totally agree with you. It's a coincidence that they went with this because they were trying to use this to make the story about January 6th seem so much more severe. Let me read the last paragraph of this section. If the election certification hadn't gone through, Stiegler told me, I think we would have possibly seen an institution just crack and crumble. I think a lot of us would have walked out. These staffers serve the person who lives in the White House, but they work for the presidency, not the president. Your allegiance to your country supersedes your allegiance to your role, said Stiegler. Those dueling loyalties had never been tested like this. So the whole, and again, this was in the prologue, a 3 or 4, whatever page long prologue, never mentioned in the book again, never mentioned once in Trump's entire chapter. And so it was kind of weird, but to me, they were trying to frame another opportunity to frame Trump, and what they did on January 6th is like the worst thing ever. And like you said, Cal, I think you're right. He picked up on some continuity government clues because that is what you would do in a situation like that. And they went with it to make it seem more severe. So it is more of a coincidence, but also not that much of a coincidence.
I think, well, first of all, it also doesn't go against, that this might not be what they were seeding, but the idea of them delaying an election, I still believe, like you just said, John, that's one route they might go down. I'd go one step further than what you guys just brought up, though. So let's look at this from the lens you just described. You've got Stiegler here, who is picking up on continuity of government vibes on January 6th. Well, what's interesting is we're in this info war, and if you're in politics, especially at that time, the literal transition of power, every side's got their ear to the ground in every way they possibly could, right? Politicians, people plugged into the military, incoming, outgoing officials all over the government. And Stiegler maybe is saying, maybe he was picking up on conversation or rumors of continuity of government being implemented, and he logically assumed that they're talking about the events of January 6th in terms of, oh, we might have to go into a COG scenario because crazy MAGA is attacking the Capitol. When it's also possible that he's hearing about, it's a little weird when he mentions, like, I have to be careful what I say, and some of this stuff is behind closed doors and everything. It was making me think that he could have been picking up on rumors of deep state factions in DC knowing that something's going on with Trump and Trump's guys, maybe with Pence, as we've obviously forwarded that theory on J6, and he just completely swerved and misread. Oh, this is our side looking at continuity of government, but was he hearing whispers that continuity of government is being implemented? And I know that, you would know more how to answer this, John, but...
Because I'm way smarter and stuff?
Well, just the actual process of COG being implemented. It's executive order based, right? But we do look at that J6 day as one of the key markers, if not like the go order, that Mike Pence played a major role in of going through with COG. So it might be a coincidence, but not in the way you guys framed it. It could also be a coincidence that he's picking up on Patriot COG plans that happen to be being implemented that day or that week. Yep. And he's like, oh, it must have been us that's doing that. It must have been our side.
I mean, it's an interesting thought because, as I've said before, we don't know anything other than what's available publicly. We spitball about stuff that we see happening and what we think might happen or have happened, whatever. November 3rd, the election is stolen. Trump told us for months and months that they're going to steal it. They're going to use mail-in ballots because of COVID to do it. He saw it coming. Okay. We have the stuff with the irregular warfare annex and whatever. We can go into detail after detail about how this stuff lined up. But that was number one. That happens. Trump comes out that night, gives that speech, like looks the most disappointed he's ever been, as if like, I can't believe these fuckers actually did it. Okay. December 7th is that executive order 13961, where he establishes that committee implementing and executing a continuity government plan. That's like, to me, that's the go marker. Okay. We know we're going to have to walk away from this at some point. This is, we're doing it. And then I think it was shortly thereafter that he gave that speech from the it wasn't from the Oval, but it was from the White House, where if I'm right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president. It was this one.
If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
That was after the EO 13961. So continuity government implemented, that thing happens. And then January 6th, that is a big go marker because they let him get away with it. That's them. Yeah. The only other go marker to me would be the actual inauguration. But what happens between January 6th and January 20th is, starting on January 13th, Trump starts issuing all those national security presidential memorandums, 10 of them in the last 10 days, which is just absolutely insane. And then the 19th, you have this go out to thousands of government employees. COG-CON 2, the White House has set continuity of government conditions to 2. No action is required by you at this time. As an emergency relocation group member, you are reminded that should an order for continuity of operations occur, you must report to the alternate operating facility within 4 hours. And then you respond, or you're supposed to respond that you acknowledge it or not. But why would that have taken place unless that was like initiated? It says in there they've been lowered. So it's just, I don't know when the actual like the decision was made. We'll probably never know. But January 6th was likely you can't go back from that point. Once you allow that to take place and you allow them to hijack that event and frame Trump for this insurrection, there's no going back from that at that point. I think that was okay, well, here we go. And there's no turning back now.
And I think that Christopher Miller's comments, even in the last year or so, well, even going further back about J6, are some of the most telling that you've played a lot. When the full truth is told about that day, a lot of that kind of stuff. That's again why a lot of times we frame that as saying there was an insurrection on January 6th. It's just not against the one Trump. They told you. Yeah,
I have that clip if you want me to play it.
Real quick. Go ahead.
I won't play the full thing, but I'll play it till that point.
So when you were in the Secretary of Defense office, you mentioned you were there for 73 days and a lot happened, including the storming of the Capitol. Is there anything you wish you had done differently, or how do you evaluate it now looking back?
The criticism I have of myself was I was so freaking naive. I was like, well, now, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all Americans and we care about national security and we're not going to politicize this. My experience from that was, oh my gosh. And that's what we're experiencing right now. The truth has not been told. The full story has not been told. And my,
do you mean?
Yeah. So that's like a full 2-minute video. You can find it on my Telegram, but
that's weird. That was so weird. That's Anthony Pompliano, the guy that's interviewing him, which I just never put this together, but he's like the most famous Bitcoin guy on YouTube. And is the nephew of Peter Schiff, that he never talks about.
That guy was?
That's Anthony Pompliano. Yeah.
I have no idea who that is. Yeah, I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he's like on all the mainstream media stuff when they talk about Bitcoin. Very strange. I don't know why he was interviewing Christopher C. Miller there. But the reason I bring that up is because, like you said with J6, to me it's like the way I think of the COG stuff is all the executive orders you just laid out and the timeline you laid out following November 3rd is the equivalent of arming the torpedo. You're loading the chamber. You've got all this process. You go down. You're arming the torpedo, and then there's you're waiting until conditions are right to hit the button. And it feels like if there was a day when you hit the button, it is that day. And also, like we've talked about many times, Mike Pence's role there, besides what we've talked about, is maybe to almost give them a last out. Give the other sides, like, are you really going to go through this? You mentioned it in the context of November 3rd itself, going forward with the steal. But January 6th was a day when they had their out. They could have backed out. They could have refused to certify that election. Not Pence himself, but the electors could have done that. And that's where
Pence's letter from January 6th basically said that. Like his letter, if you read it from January 6th, he's like, it is not my job to do this. It is up to Congress. They need to follow their oath and do all the things that they're supposed to do. It's not on me. So you're absolutely right.
It's just making me think, and you can go after this, Kyle. Sorry, but
you're fine.
It's just making me think. Even going back to the Q drops, when the Q drops are talking about traitors to this nation and how deep this corruption goes, the drops also mention leverage quite a bit, going either way. They talk about how there's a lot of politicians, there's a lot of quote unquote leaders and representatives who are not necessarily on the enemy's side, but they have been compromised. They've got strings. The implication is that they've been given choices. And this is one of those, right? We sit here and we're like, well, they're all corrupt. Of course you knew they were going to do it. And I'll be honest that when you say, oh, Trump looks so disappointed, like, I can't believe they actually went forward with this. I've always thought that was a little silly, because I'm like, well, they knew who those people are, but maybe the disappointment from patriots comes in where there were people who had choices that they could have made that were approached. There were leaders and elected officials that could have chosen differently, that were probably approached with this election fraud information. They were told that this was not a legitimate election. They were told that you have a responsibility to your constituents to do the right thing when it comes time to cast your vote or not cast your vote, to abstain. And those people chose the other side. But the good thing is, what it gives patriots, what it gives the legal system, eventually, when we hopefully see justice for this stuff, there's no outs. That's the day. January 6th is the day when those doors close to them. And Pence was their last out. Are you going to do the right thing and we'll punish the people who didn't? Or are you going to throw in with them? And it goes all the way back to the stuff we talk about all the time with Donald Trump saying he wants to see who people are. And that's the only way he could see who they were, is if they believed, which they did, the rats chose wrong. They believed that with Biden being inaugurated, they had beaten the orange man. And really all they'd done is proven their guilt and chosen a side.
Kyle, you got anything else?
I mean, I largely concur. I don't really want to open up the Pence debate again because it just gets so old and exhausting. And I just don't worry about it anymore, because November 2024 is coming, and so is January 2025. And I think people, well, if they're intellectually honest, I think, and if we are correct about Pence, I think post January 2025, people will look back and be like, oh yeah, it actually did make sense that Pence did what he did, and it worked out good in the end because of how things are now. I think the
pudding's in the eating.
That mirror is going to be stood right up for all of those people in DC to stare right into as they say the same things that they accuse Trump and MAGA of, and they attempt the things that they accuse Trump of attempting. And yeah.
Are you sure you don't want to respond to this comment that says Pence got a letter at Bush's funeral, Kyle?
No.
We'll call it the Asherton window. It'll be when we get Ash on board with Pence. I think she's a never Pencer. Right?
We'll never get on. She can't even get on board with the chip stuff. How are we ever going to get her on board with that?
That's true.
The Pence stuff. Whatever. But anyway, very interesting. If we see more stories in the mainstream media regarding January 6th or even Trump's time in office at all and continuity government, then I'll start being like, okay, now they're seeding something. But for now, this just seems like a desperate attempt to paint the January 6th situation as a worst case scenario like they want it to be. And guys, I'm obviously the one who, like, I would love for every mention of continuity of government to be like a hat tip or whatever, or like a sign, but I'm a realist as well. And I don't think this was it. I think this was definitely just a coincidence. So, but an interesting coincidence. And George Stephanopoulos is a major douchebag. So
Clinton
share my
Knight,
screen
too.
for a second.
What was that?
He's a Clintonite also.
Yeah.
This is Pompliano. So just as an FYI, I think it's a little odd. He's interviewing Christopher Miller 3 years ago about.
I thought you said he's like the most famous Bitcoin guy out there. He's getting like, we get better.
Oh, I'm not saying necessarily on YouTube, but whenever they have a Bitcoin person on
it's been a couple weeks now.
Mainstream media, it's always Pompliano.
Good morning
He's
to
like
you.
the
Good morning.
representative,
So the halving happened.
Representative of Bitcoin
Tom, what
people.
about
Turn your
that?
audio off, bro. What are you doing?
I think, but I also think it's weird with Pompliano because he's supposedly this big Bitcoin maximalist, but apparently he's the nephew of the gold bug Peter Schiff, and Peter Schiff hates Bitcoin. So I'm like,
Kayfabe.
The most famous gold guy that they interview on mainstream media is Peter Schiff, and the most famous Bitcoin guy that they interview on mainstream media is his nephew, Pompliano. Little odd, Pomp. Also, he's really into altcoins and pumping shitcoins. So
Bitcoin has been up today. So
I thought I remembered that interview was for Salon. Or it was from it was for some magazine or website they were interviewing him
it was
for.
Salon, I think.
I think it was Salon.
So Pomp is an asset, is what we're.
So I don't know if he worked for Salon at the time or what, but
and now he's a Bitcoin maxi.
But speaking of Peter Schiff and gold bugs, you probably get to our second sponsor tonight because that is Goldco. Are you concerned about the $6 trillion at stake in the upcoming 2024 election? The Wall Street Journal has reported a critical issue, the looming decision on extending tax cuts scheduled to expire after 2025. Republicans advocate for extending Trump's tax cuts, while Democrats lean towards letting them expire and increasing taxes on top earners and corporations, potentially creating a massive $6 trillion gap. But fear not, there's a way to protect yourself from this impending threat. Join the thousands of hardworking Americans who are taking proactive steps to safeguard their savings. Visit badlandsgold.com to claim your free 2024 gold and silver kit and fortify everything you've worked for. You may even qualify for up to 10% back in bonus silver, but hurry, supplies are limited. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Act now to diversify and shield your savings against the uncertainties ahead. Get your free 2024 gold and silver kit today at badlandsgold.com and take control of your financial destiny. And if you've been following us at all, you know we are believers in getting out of the dollar. Getting into badlandsgold.com or badlandsmedia.tv/river. The Bitcoin's up. Did I see silver today? It was up to like $30 at one point.
Yep.
That's wild and awesome.
We're out of the dollar until such a time as Trump backs it with something real, such as gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
Yeah. All three. That'd be crazy. He's going to create a new currency that is a mixture. He's going to take a Bitcoin and a gold and silver and like meld it all together into one thing to back the dollar.
Or
get your gold and silver.
He will fulfill the Orange Man prophecies, and it will just be orange peels as legal tender. And
you would love that with all your old fashions you make.
It's true. The recipe's been perfected.
I don't believe you, but if you ever invite me up there, maybe I can verify that myself.
I did invite you up there. I even have a little cask smoker, a little old-fashioned smoker, because I know Johnny likes his old-fashioned smoked.
I do like them smoked. The main reason I want to go and visit Burning Bright is because I feel like I could take one of those swords and stab him with it, and I feel like that'd be really fulfilling.
I recently have been cleaning the basement and found, as Kyle will remember from being here, when I tried to find toys for his children to play with, all I could find was weapons.
Yes.
But I did find some toys from my childhood, and it turns out they're wooden weapons. They're wooden swords, but we can fight with those.
The only toys you have are weapons?
Toy weapons.
Do you have lightsabers? My son...
No, I don't really have lightsabers.
Out of nowhere the other day, he's like, I want to watch Star Wars. It's like, okay, so we watched Star Wars.
Don't show them the new ones.
We started with the new ones. We went in order, chronological order. But he's like 6 years old and he freaking loved it. So then he's like, I want a lightsaber. So I got him a lightsaber, and now we have lightsaber duels in the backyard. It's been fun.
Nice. My kids were having a lightsaber duel tonight.
See, it's everywhere.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to get into, what do I want to get into? Let's talk about, I have 100 tabs open. I just got to find the right one. What the hell? Okay, here we go. Let's talk about this. We are finally going to get some debates. Maybe.
Yes, in June.
We are finally, maybe.
Well, we don't know because both sides have now agreed to debates. Trump's been asking for it for a while. Biden put together a 14-second video that took 5 different takes. You'll see by the edits in here. Like, they edit this 14-second video so many different times, which is insane. Like, this guy has to take 5 takes to get through a 14-second video. But watch this.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. Since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Oh my God. That's insane.
That's pretty crazy.
But
I would forward the theory that the rap feud that's been going on, that the kids have been talking about, was narrative seeding for this.
The
battle.
rap feud?
There's apparently some sort of rap feud that's been going on. The kids will tell you. But
I don't know any kids that talk about rap, so
this really does look like a diss track. Like Biden, he's dropping his diss video to prep. It's like fight promotion. That's what's been so funny about it. I feel like we've never really seen this before, which is again adds to the feeling of all of this being a little bit of a show. When you've got both sides being like, he won't fight me. It's negotiations. It's a known thing in combat sports is that many times a fight contract has basically been signed or agreed to, but the fighters will spar in the media for 2 months saying, sign the contract, bitch, right? And all they're doing is juicing up the announcement of when the contract gets signed. So Biden's just doing his part as the heel. Yeah,
that's exactly what happened. Trump has been saying he wants to debate for months now, right? And teasing Joe Biden about it. And then Joe Biden went on some radio show. Was it Howard Stern? He went on Howard Stern and said that he would debate Trump. And so Trump said, bring it. That was like a month ago. And so then Biden's team put this out. But notice what they did. Biden's team put out something that was stacked against Trump. It said it can only be these networks. It can only be these hosts, like all of this stuff, right? So it's like totally friendly territory. Biden basically said, I'll fight you, but it has to be on my home turf.
Yeah,
with
my weight,
referees,
my stadium, my personals.
fans, like all of this, right? And Trump, within minutes, was like, all right, let's do it.
Yep.
And like he called I think it was supposed to be a bluff. I think what was supposed to happen is that Trump was supposed to argue about how unfair it was, and Biden team was going to negotiate a bid and call Trump a pussy and all this stuff. But Trump accepted like that. He was like, okay, accelerate. Let's do it. And so now they're booked for a debate on June 27th, and the Biden team has to be like, okay, actually, we might have to actually do this.
Right. We didn't want to actually do this.
Which is super early, a June debate.
Yeah, there's two debates scheduled.
June and September.
And rumors of a third with Fox News. I think there's one with CNN. And the CNN one I know for sure has no audience, which that's definitely in Biden's favor as well.
Yes.
So this is more like a fight contract than I even thought, because typically two high level prize fighters, they will build a rematch clause into the first contract, but a rubber match clause only activates if they go 1-1 in the first 2. So they are basically playing out like a Jake Paul, Mike Tyson contract negotiation.
100%.
Sign the contract, bitch. They've got the rematch clause already set, but they don't have a rubber match unless it goes 1-1.
You got it.
Yeah, the debate will be held in CNN's Atlanta studios. To ensure candidates may maximize the time allotted in the debate, no audience will be present. Moderators for the debate and additional details will be announced at a later date. I'm pretty sure we heard it was Jake Tapper and some other slut that's doing it. I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
But they're totally biased against Trump. And okay, another thing, in that Biden clip, they say that. Let me play this one more time. He says that Donald Trump lost the debates to him in 2020. That is bullshit as well. And like, there is no authority that like, okay, this person won the debate. I mean, the mainstream media is kind of supposed to give their perspective on what they think took place, and obviously the left and the mainstream media is going to say Trump sucked, Biden won, whatever. But there, if you actually watch those debates, Trump wiped the floor with him at every opportunity.
I don't know. Biden accurately predicted that the U.S. southern border would be completely overwhelmed during his presidency. So
maybe. I do want to watch this one more time, though. Again, pay attention to how many times they cut. They do that because he cannot do a 14-second clip reading the prompter in one take.
Sure. Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. Since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Notice his arms, too. When they, like here, his arms are down, and when they cut back, his arms are up.
You know what it makes me think when he says "make my day, pal"? You could totally imagine that he's actually just yelling at the director. And they just cut it in. they kept like prodding him and getting him back in there, and then they're like, "Perfect, we can use that."
I heard you're free on Wednesdays.
Because that's totally out of context with the rest of the clip.
Well, that is in reference to
his trial,
Manhattan trial that he's going through right now.
Yeah, that's actually a decent line. That was actually okay.
Yeah, but how many people in the mainstream audience who are going to watch that are going to understand what that's about?
I don't know, but the trial's not going to be going on in June 27th, so it'll be over by then. But I get him throwing that line in.
When is the Democratic primary?
I forgot they still had those.
Or the
they've already had their primaries.
Oh yeah,
convention.
The convention. Yep.
I don't know. Aren't they both in like August or September?
I think they are. I think they're going to be between debates because there's 2 thoughts I've seen floating around on Twitter.
August.
One
August
thing
19th.
Okay. So the first debate will take place. I could see the left and the Democrats using the first debate and how badly Trump swamps Biden, because that's going to happen. You're going to have the distinction between somebody who can just formulate a sentence coherently and Joe Biden. That is going to be enough to be like, okay, we're fucked here. We got to do something. I could see them all making a push for somebody other than Biden at the convention. So that'll be an interesting time period. I don't think that'll be successful. I think they are stuck with Biden, considering they booked a second debate, number one. But it's going to be an interesting time period from that debate to the convention. And then the aftermath of the convention when Biden is still the nominee, which we've been talking about forever, that is a devil proof in and of itself, that they are rerunning this.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting too.
The longer Biden is our candidate, their candidate, the more he's our candidate. He's our boy. Hashtag our boy.
So did you see Kimberly, and I think Kimberly Auer and also Jordan Sather both picked up on this decode that September 10th date that Donald Trump agreed to debate, that second debate, is an exact delta for a Q drop about debates and the Biden camp.
Did see that, yep.
I did not see this.
Okay, Trump says the 10th, and this is a delta for September 10th, and this is what it says. So I'm like, sometimes drops hit in a tangential way, where it's kind of like, oh yeah, you can kind of draw that. Yeah, you can kind of. And then sometimes drops hit. And this is a drop that just hits. And I'm going to be looking for this drop to come true for that second debate. Like,
if anybody's just listening, it's Q drop. What is it? 4657 says debates. Yep. Biden camp will find excuse or reason to terminate. Biden camp will be provided the questions ahead of time. Biden camp will be provided the questions ahead of time and assistance in the form of a special communication device. So obviously at the time, this looks like it's referring to the 2020 debates, but double meanings exist. And this time he would extra need those.
That is interesting. Speaking of things that just like kind of hit, I got this for you guys.
Is that the ghost of Kyiv on base?
It's Anthony Blinken, by the way.
This is what it's like when you're at war, okay?
Yep.
This is what
Things
it's
in
like.
Ukraine are so
Proxy
serious
war.
that he had to go over there, and this is
shredding in Kyiv. This is them. This is just them telling us, like, guys, don't take this too seriously. This is like their Live Aid. Is this the new Live Aid concert?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yes.
The Ukraine Live Aid.
Queen was booked.
It's more like Live AIDS, though. I feel like I have AIDS after watching this.
Not quite the lineup we got.
I don't think things are in tune, honestly.
All the way around.
It's like, who is the one that's like, hey, man, we're going to tell everybody that the situation is so dire. We need more money. We're going to postpone elections indefinitely. But then we need you to like raise everybody's spirits. We're going to have you go play with this Ukrainian band and sing Rockin' in a Free World. And you're going to play and do all this stuff. Like, who's the one who decided that?
Great script writers, because as Chris and I have said, we are transitioning into the dark comedy stage of the movie. That's where cognitive dissonance really sets in. You start to break that. Some normie out there was buying every Ukraine narrative. There is somebody today, I promise you, that had both a Ukraine flag and a gay pride flag in their driveway. And they saw that clip come across their social media. They went out and they took the Ukraine flag in. They left the gay one out there. But that dead-eyed deep state shill trying to shred free world with the ghost of Kyiv, that is enough for somebody to break that, to free them permanently. You can't go back once you've stared into the abyss, also known as Anthony Blinken's eyes on stage in Kyiv.
I don't get it.
That guy does have dead eyes, man.
Yeah, he does.
You can't shred free world with dead eyes. Like a tadpole.
Anyway. I don't know what we were talking about before that, but
what was his technique like, Kyle, as the resident expert?
Oh, let's watch again. Let's do a study. He's definitely got the groove to the beat going.
I mean, they sounded. I mean, they sound like they were on beat, just not in tune.
Yeah.
Off key in Kyiv. So,
I mean, I can tell why Putin felt compelled to shuffle his cabinet after seeing this. He put a banker in charge of defense.
He was like, Shoigu, you've seen enough, man.
How many rockers?
You off the front lines.
How many rockers like tuck in their shirt into their jeans like that?
You know,
is that normal?
Probably Rage Against the Machine these days.
That is a good way to scratch up the back of your guitar. Now, some guitarists don't care about that, but yeah, a belt buckle against the back of a guitar is pain.
We should just play this anytime we start taking this.
He's doing fine. He's hitting C's and G's and F chords, and he's doing fine. There's a D in there, and
I just don't understand.
It's a B7 suspended right there, possibly. But he did, while he was over there, in addition to burning down the house with these tunes, he
in the free world.
Yeah. So he had a meeting with some of the Ukrainian supposed leaders and their supposed government about this supposed war, and he had an interesting quote which has caused a change possibly in Ukraine's perception of U.S. foreign policy in Ukraine. So you know how how we're giving them like neutered missiles, and we're not allowing them to strike inside Russia.
Well, can I clarify that real quick?
Yeah.
We're giving them missiles. The Biden administration and our Congress is voting on sending them weapons and all this stuff. The military is basically handicapping the weapons so that they cannot fire into Russia.
Yeah. So while he was over there, he had this, he made these statements, and I have this quote from an article where Blinken said, quote, "We have not encouraged or enabled strikes outside of Ukraine. But ultimately," so think about those verbs there. "We have not encouraged or enabled strikes outside of Ukraine. But ultimately, Ukraine has to make decisions for itself about how it's going to conduct this war, a war it's conducting in defense of its freedom, of its sovereignty, of its territorial integrity. And we will continue to back Ukraine with the equipment that it needs to succeed, that it needs to win. And then there's a comment in the article where they say Blinken's characterization of the U.S. policy was interpreted by some Ukrainian circles as a change in policy. Mm-hmm. Because instead of saying, no, Ukraine, you cannot use U.S. supplied equipment or ammo to strike inside Russia. Well, they were complaining about it because they're saying, like, look, we're at the border with Russia and we can literally hit Russian targets 100, 200 meters away, but you guys won't let us because we're not allowed to do it. Well, now that he's saying Ukraine must decide how to run the war.
Yeah, he's like, we're not doing it.
They're interpreting it as, oh, I guess we can do this now.
That is interesting.
So it's like he kicked open the door a little bit, or like left the gate open. Like, if you're going to roam out in this other pasture, you can. I'm just leaving the gate open. I'm not telling you to go out there. I'm not putting you over there. Just leaving the gate open.
I'm going to play this clip. I think this is the relevant text you just talked about.
It has been our view and policy from day one when it comes to Ukraine to do everything we possibly can to help Ukraine defend itself against this Russian aggression. At the same time, we have neither supported nor enabled strikes by Ukraine outside of its territory.
To me, that almost feels like it's like one of those denials where you're totally guilty, because think of all the shit the CIA's pulled outside of Ukraine's territory, on Russia, on the pipeline, on all these other things. I don't know, man. I can see what you're saying.
Official acts. The CIA has done a bunch of shit, but the U.S. military or government has not sanctioned it.
The word enabled is an interesting one. I'd have to chew on that.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that bitch Victoria Nuland talking about what would happen in Ukraine and how they would stop Nord Stream. And
right.
Oh, she's a bitch, isn't she?
And we found her the other day, didn't we, BB?
Yeah.
We found where she's gone.
We found her.
We found her.
Where'd she go? She's probably at that concert by
She's at Columbia. She's teaching. She's a professor at Columbia. And she says she's working on some important projects on the side.
Like what?
So they go back. We were saying they go back into their university incubators, like their bunkers, their think tanks, and then they come back out into positions, official policy positions, and they swap. It's like a recycling program.
How many NGOs is she a part of?
Many, and this is a relevant tidbit to bring up today. I told you before the show I wanted to mention Georgia. I think it's relevant to this. The country of Georgia,
not the state,
not the state of Georgia. White House deeply troubled as Georgia enacts law to thwart NGO interference. So Georgia's another territory that the EU has been trying to Ukrainify. I was reading all about Georgia today, and one of the really interesting things is they've got their own color revolution, literally a colored revolution, the Rose Revolution that took place in 2003 that NATO allies supported and which ousted a pro-Russian government. So it's another one. So, but anyway, NATO is not very happy right now because it turns out that Georgia is a highly Orthodox Christian state. They are friendly, reportedly, with Russia. They are against the NATO and EU sanctions. So Georgia's parliament on Tuesday adopted a foreign agents law that would impede foreign non-governmental organizations, NGOs, ability to operate in the country and put Georgia's European Union and NATO ambitions in jeopardy. So then you've got Biden press.
By banning the NGOs, that put their NATO status in jeopardy?
Isn't that a disclosure all in its own?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it
Why
is.
would non-governmental organizations stop them from joining the European Union?
Well, that's that seems very similar to what Russia did when they banned George Soros and the Open Societies Foundation. Were like, we're going to arrest this motherfucker if he ever steps foot in our territory again.
Yep. And I want to read too. This is in case you were wondering where they're getting that the West is upset about this. Biden press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters, quote, "We're deeply troubled by Georgia's Kremlin-style foreign agents legislation. We have been outspoken about our concerns with the legislation, which runs counter to democratic values and would move Georgia further away from the values of the European Union. And let's not forget, also NATO." So exactly what you just said, and they're saying it themselves. Like, Now listen, Georgia, if you don't let our NGOs in, you sounding a little Kremlin-y. So maybe something happens to you. And again, this is relevant too. There was a reported assassination attempt today on the Slovak prime minister.
Yeah.
Who is he? A Kremlin-style leader who is against NATO sanctions on Russia, and somebody who strongly disagrees with his political policies shot him today. He's reportedly in stable position.
A journalist, too.
Yep. Prime Minister Fica. Oh, he was a journalist. I didn't see that.
He was a journalist because he had, from what I saw, he's come out against like the mainstream media there in a lot of ways, but maybe I'm wrong. But okay, just a comment here. I'm going to try not to come off as, how do I want to put this? I'm going to try to not be insensitive or like racist or anything, but this is like an honest question for you guys. When people think of like the mainstream media is propagandized so much and everybody has like these preconceived notions of these other countries. Some people were able to break away from that. But like when people think Canada, they think, oh, well, whatever, Canada, eh? You know, like people are like, Canada sucks. Russia, boogeyman, no offense to your wife, by the way, Bernie Bright. Like people have these preconceived notions of different places in the world because of the way the mainstream media has painted it. Russia, if they are who we think they are and are doing what we think they're doing with Trump, how does that reputation get fixed for them? Because ever since at least, I mean, shit, the Cold War, they've been the boogeyman. And if they're not
70
bad,
years,
that's got to be part. That's got to be part of the deprogramming. How does that get changed? Especially for like, there's even a few Badlanders who have like they cannot accept alternative narratives because they're so like Russia bad. There's no other way that they will ever not be bad, and they can't break away from it. When there's, in my opinion, evidence to the contrary.
This was one of the major things, and when I wrote the Righteous Russia series, the first entry in it was all about that. Was all about the generations of programming. You use the term boogeyman. They're the boogeyman, right? There's been other ones that have come and gone. There's been it was the Middle Easterner. It was this. It was that. All these different all these different sort of stand-ins or temporary villains. But Russia has been the one that has been perpetuated throughout not just the news cycle, going back to the Kennedy administration, the Reagan administration, the Nixon administration. It kind of took a breather in the 90s with the advent of Putin. Then the Trump administration, they're back. The Obama administration was really when I noticed a resurgence in anti-Russia sentiment in the West. Obama and Putin did not get along in the media. They sparred the entire time. All that makes sense in hindsight. In terms of how does that get fixed, I think it's a couple things. Number one, I'm able to just keep gliding right through this.
Except you stopped to comment on it. So
speaking of subversion, I think it's twofold.
Motherfucker.
I think for starters, it's generational. The programming was generational. It's our parents are goners in terms of ever liking Russia. That generation. Though? I mean, I think a lot of normies are never going to be totally on board as Russia's awesome. I think each successive generation will be closer to that. And again, not talking about individuals, I'm talking generation-wide normies. But I do think that it's not so much about what Russia does. It's the continued exposure we talk about in all these various ways of the people standing in opposition to Russia. So it's easy for Westerners to have a negative view of the enemy to the West when Russia has been priming itself as an enemy to the EU, an enemy to NATO, or an adversarial, when Westerners have a good opinion of the EU and of NATO and of the West. But it turns out the people who have the lowest opinion of the West right now, throughout the Biden administration and this Ukrainian proxy war, is Westerners. So the more that Western governments subjugate their own people, which they've been doing, run their economies off the rails, try to fund foreign proxy wars to the detriment of their own people, potentially get implicated in terror strikes on their own infrastructure, such as Germany and beyond. And the more Russia is seen as opposition to all of this, that's when I think you start getting those comparison games going on. You know, now you've got them coming right out and threatening satellite states, with this kind of stuff. And what this attack on the Slovak prime minister is going to do, Viktor Orban was the first world leader to put a statement out. And he was condemning the Western globalist media for demonizing the Slovak prime minister to their audiences by calling him a Kremlin agent and all this kind of stuff. So you're getting this pushback that's starting, you're getting this block forming in Eastern Europe. And I think that, that's going to accelerate a lot of that narrative turn too. Trump is the one, though, that's going to bring it the farthest. Because like you said, there are still people in MAGA who have drank the anti-Russia Kool-Aid. And when Trump's on a stage with him, it's going to be, I think, the beginning of the rehabilitation tour of Russia to Westerners. But it is going to take time, I think.
See, that's what's amazing about Trump is I think he's the only guy that can rehabilitate anybody's image in the eyes of his base, especially. But like, you look at people who signed up for some potentially pretty shitty roles in terms of this period that we're going through right now, like Mike Pence, Bill Barr, maybe DeSantis, like all these other people. Like the only person that can rescue their reputation would be Trump.
Yep.
And he could do it pretty easily. I think he could do the same thing with some of these foreign leaders that the mainstream media has painted in a negative light, especially if the mainstream media, man, I've said especially a lot tonight. I'm surprised the chat hasn't picked up on that. That's like the fifth one I've caught myself saying. But especially if the mainstream media is kind of dismantled by the time Trump's back in office, which I think is the trajectory that we are on, is they're going to be pretty much irrelevant by the time Trump is, once the election season is done and the polls are all wrong and Biden might be declared the winner and all whatever bullshit goes down. By the time Trump's back in, I think the mainstream media is irrelevant. At that point, like Trump can fix any reputation he wants.
By the way, chat, we shouldn't have to say this every time. I'm not saying boomers don't like Russia. I'm talking about generational normies. That's when I say the word normie. The irony is when you say normies and then people in chat get mad. I'm saying normies like in it'll be generational. I'm not accepting millennials from that. I'm saying that if you picture the next generation, especially like after Zoomers, the idea being if this goes well, they're going to literally be raised in a world where we have a super good relationship with Russia. So you don't have 50 years of programming to undo, where there's a lot of normies, especially in the boomer generation, that literally were doing drills in school of hiding under their desks from Russian nukes. So that's just where you get a generational framing here.
I got that.
I don't disagree with anything BB said, but I think that I don't know how much Trump can do as far as undoing the Russophobia. I think he can do a lot. Or I think he can make an impact, but I don't think he can undo generations of the programming. And I think the only thing that really can do is exposure to alternative presentations of Russia and Russian people. So like, I think the programming, it was put into the American people for 50 plus years. There's going to have to be counter programming for at least a generation to counteract all that. So what I'm saying is like, there's going to have to be more interviews like what Tucker did. Mm-hmm. There's going to have to be like cultural events. There's like sporting events that go between the two countries. There's going to have to be movies that feature people from both countries, like engaging in some rom-com or some bullshit, right? Like that kind of the programming that got into the American people. What? Yeah, I'm serious.
It makes sense, but it's hilarious.
I know.
A Russian and American falling in love during the Ukrainian war.
How many movies, made for TV movies, like other things have there been that were evil Russian spy lures American businessman into her lair to extract intelligence, to get access to classified documents where he works. Like there's been
Flynn story, allegedly, isn't it? That's what they tried to paint Flynn as.
Yeah. So like, see, like it's there's so much of it to undo.
Yeah.
So no, I just don't. You're like if you're trying to break through, to somebody who's like even our age. Like I'm 40, so you try and break through a 40-year-old to get that's been raised this way with this view and has seen every Bond movie like a dozen times, and like that's how you grew up. And I think you have to undo that by repeated exposure to something contrary to it that breaks down those prejudices. And it's going to take a long time. I think Trump can make a big impact, but I don't think it's as simple as Trump being on stage with Putin and, you start seeing that turn. I think it's going to take a whole generation.
I think because you disagreed with Bernie Brad, I agree with you 100%. So
thank you.
The
I actually
thing
agree
about
with them, but
well, then never mind.
the sports point though, like I actually talked to Ghost a lot about this. I think that there's way more of a plan going on with the sports stuff, especially the Saudis, that I think is part of the plan. And I come from the combat sports world in terms of just fandom and all that kind of stuff, but I can't recall my whole life before the UFC having any kind of regular exposure to Russian athletes in a positive way. I mean,
in a positive way. Yeah.
The only like world famous Russian athlete in modern times that's outside of combat sports that I can think of would be Nikola Jokic, who got famous. Well, he was already a famous tennis player, but he got famous during COVID for refusing to take the vax. So Australia wouldn't let him in and they were threatening him and everything. So a lot of MAGA got a good opinion of him. But in the UFC, it's half run by friggin' Dagestanis these days. Khabib Nurmagomedov was the champion, retired undefeated, beat Conor McGregor. But people love him. He started as the Russian villain, and then they started to get his stoic sense of humor. Putin deeded him all this land after he won the title. MMA fans love him. Then you have Islam Makhachev as the champion right now. He fights in a couple of weeks. You've got this line. You've got a Georgian fighter, Merab Davishvili, right now. Speaking of Georgia, so you've got all these fighters in that Russian Islamic region right now that are hugely popular in that region and in the West. A lot of American MMA fans love those guys. They're getting exposed to that culture. And then who do you got coming in? You got Mohammed bin Salman and the Minister of Sport in Saudi Arabia, just pumping literally hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars into sponsoring Western sports. There's a UFC event in Riyadh in June. There's going to be another one toward the end of the year. There's going to be a pay-per-view stadium show next year. They're doing F1 stuff. And it's like, I don't think that's just Saudi businessmen looking to make money. I think that's, hey, you know what Western mind thinks of the Saudis and thinks of Russians? Well, we're going to start permeating Western culture in a very positive direction by putting on these big events. And John, we've talked about before, you're a big golf fan, right? And the Saudis have pushed hugely into that world too.
Yeah. Yep. I would like to point out an error that Bernie Brett made. Jokic is an NBA player, not a tennis player.
Oh man.
You're thinking Djokovic?
Oh my God, that's horrible.
That's so embarrassing.
And Nikola Jokic, I don't think is Russian, but he's Russian-y.
He's like foreign. Dude, that
Slavic.
guy's so funny. Like he hates basketball. He's like
he should not be good at basketball. He's just like some fat guy. But he's so good.
He's like, oh, whatever. I hate it. I hate basketball, but I play. And he's like MVP, and he's like, he's
three-time MVP. Yeah, oh my God, that's horrible. Yeah, Jokovic, right? Djokovic
is a tennis player.
Yeah, Nikola Jokic. All right, those are close.
I mean, close, but that was very embarrassing. I'm gonna note this down, and when we do your review, this will be brought up, sir.
Jokic.
But we should start writing a script for the Russia-Ukraine State Department rom-com thing that we're gonna put together. Because I feel like that's gonna be a hit.
I just picture Patriots like the ghost script writers, and they're watching this episode and they're like, Kyle's right. We do need rom-coms and some bullshit, or none of it's gonna work.
There is some like Prime Video Ukraine sniper story that's like single-handedly killing all the Russians.
The Ghost of Kyiv.
It's not that. It's something similar though. But before we move on, thinking of things that are sweet and good for the soul, we got some Benson Honey Farms we got to discuss a little bit. You guys, if you've been with us since day one, you've known about Benson Honey Farms because they've been with us since day one. Indulge in the authentic, unpasteurized, 100% natural honey, a product of diligent bees working the fields of wildflowers, and it's as raw and robust as the spirit of Badlands. When you're seeking a taste that's real, pure, and American, choose Benson Honey Farms, the sweetness born and bred in the heart of Nebraska. Craving something sweet, Benson Honey's honey-infused candies capture the essence of Nebraska, each bite a delightful taste of home. And don't forget to try the goat's milk honey soap. That's Bernie Bright's favorite for the nether regions. Benson Honey Farms, a celebration of America First spirit, a symbol of resilience of our homeland, embodying the spirit of Badlands. Their family-run operation is a reminder that the true flavor of America lies in its heartland. Benson Honey Farms, proudly American, naturally delicious. Badlandsmedia.tv/honey. And they are some great people over there. We love Mo and her whole family, her whole growing family. So support them and support us in the process. Badlands.
I saw Ghost sneaking around in the chat. And I see that my takes aren't ready, Ghost. So you get back in the take cage and you deliver takes for the people for the brief tomorrow.
Yeah, guys. Did you know that Badlands, I don't even know how many people are aware. We put out a Substack every day of the week. Every morning. There's a whole show about it. And we do the featured pieces. And it's a great way to support Badlands Media. Subscribe
just so people know, Substack, badlands.substack.com. It's all free. If you want to support the team, you can do that with a paid subscription if you want. But we put out the news brief. We go through a few items that we collect during the day. It's usually me, Ash, Ghost. You see some others fly by with some takes in there. So we'll do the news items and then kind of a little bit of commentary under it. And then Ash and Patrick, they don't just read the brief on the brief show. They're kind of two sister programs because the brief has certain commentary in it, written form. And then Ash and Patrick give their own commentary as well on the show in the morning. So get the brief and then follow along with them. But if you see Ghost trying to have fun or screw around with you guys in the chat, tell him to get.
Yeah, he should have free time. He should be working right now.
Ridiculous.
No. Man, I had something. Oh, I was going to say this, and I got to find it. I'd mentioned previously that there might be a Badlanders meetup in Minnesota. Well, we have some confirmation. I forgot to pull up the actual flyer for this, but I'm going to read it on air. Eventually, I'll pull the flyer up in the future, or I'll post about this. But on June 30th at noon at Quinny's Sports Pub, or Pub Q, it's called, in I don't even know how to say this word, Matamedi, Minnesota. We're doing a little Badlands get together, so you guys should attend. If you're in the area, I'll be there, and you can RSVP to Quinny's Sports Pub at gmail.com. So you guys should make it if you can. Not you two, since you guys are nowhere near. But if you want to fly up, that'd be great. I think Patrick might actually be flying up.
You didn't know if I was going to be in the area or not.
I was kind of hoping you wouldn't be, but
quite an assumption.
I just assumed. There's sharks in Minnesota, so you probably don't want to come. But anyway, we should probably get on to our next topic. I just want to play this quick because I thought this is pretty impressive from Fox News, considering it's Fox News. But if you see Joe Biden on TV, he's talking a lot about anytime inflation is brought up, he always talks about how he lowered it and made it better. Fox News had a former economic advisor on of Biden, and they're running with the same number, that inflation was 9 to 10% when he took office. Inflation is so bad right now that they are trying to completely whitewash history and pretend like Trump didn't have good economic numbers, and people, they'll forget. Watch this clip.
Advisor to Obama. Welcome to both of you. Robert, what was inflation when Biden took office?
I'll
tell you if you don't know.
9-10%.
No. Come on.
But
Come
more
on,
importantly,
All right.
it's 3% now, so it's down by
I set you up.
2/3.
I apologize. I put you on the spot there. It was 1.4%, and that is fact. So Doug Holtz-Eakin, these are the claims that the president has been making, that the Washington Post is giving 4 Pinocchios. Kind of sounds like what Robert just said. Listen.
We have dramatically reduced inflation from 9% down to close to 3%. We're in a situation where we're better situated than we were when we took office. It was 9% when I came to office. 9%. But look, people have a right to be concerned. I think inflation has gone slightly up. It was at 9% when I came in, and it's now down around 3%.
All right, so apparently we're having a hard time with Robert's IFB. It was 1.4%, and I did put him on the spot there.
So a couple things from this clip. One, if you notice, she puts that guy on the spot, and then all of a sudden after he says 9-10% and she corrects him, his IFB or whatever, his earpiece doesn't work, and he has to leave the interview. Okay. But this is a talking point the White House has been putting out for a while now. And this is one that I just wanted to equip everybody with, that is total bullshit. Inflation was 1.4% when Biden took office, and it is up since then. We cannot let them fucking do that. We can win that aspect of the narrative war. I'll have to find like the actual details and we can post about that, but don't let them get away with that. That's bullshit. But it's crazy that Fox News actually called him out. The guy pushed out and left the fucking interview. What a pussy.
Mm-hmm. It is. I've just noticed on a general trend line, a lot of the articles that we've been looking at on this show and on Defected are mainstream media sounding the panic alarm about the 2024 election, particularly with Biden, obviously. But I've even noticed a bit of a subtle shift in the last week or two, which is that they're sort of moving from what can we do for Biden in November to how do we weather the second Trump administration. So even the media is starting to just be like, yeah, I mean, not only is he going to win, but he basically did. We should just make our peace with it. It's interesting framing. I mean, actually, Bill Maher even did a whole monologue the other night that I subjected myself to, where he was talking about how we survived it once. The world isn't going to end if Trump gets elected again. So even he's just prepping his audience to be like, it's probably going to happen.
I think you can kind of look at it as a bit of an Overton shift there, goalpost move, because the Biden team, instead of trying to tell people how good the economy is trying instead to convince people that it's not as bad as they perceive.
Right.
It was worse under Trump.
Yeah, and that it was even worse under Trump. So they're instead of like trying to convince you it's good when you know it's not, they're like, look, it could have been way worse. And it was worse under that other guy, which is a total lie. So they're having to rewrite history in people's minds, and people are going to be like, wait a minute, do I remember it being that bad? So
right.
I think it's a bit of an Overton goalpost shift right there, where they've changed the argument they're making, because what it does is it implies that they gave up on convincing people that the economy is good.
Right.
Instead, they got to make a different argument. There's no winning. You're not going to convince them that the economy is actually good. Instead, you got to convince them that it was worse under Trump, even though they know it wasn't, and that it could have been worse if it wasn't for Joe.
That's stage 4, to your point, of Overton's goalpost. That's the distract phase.
Yeah.
They start with the the economy's good. Then it's the economy's not that bad. Then it's, well, the economy is bad, but it was worse under Trump. And then what's the next step? It's just the economy's shit and it's Biden's fault. But there's other things that Trump is worse for. So that's coming next.
Yeah, it's an interesting switch. I mean, it doesn't matter really what they say at this point. I think it's the way people feel about the economy. I think it's undeniable that things are getting worse. Everything's more expensive. Everything.
Yeah.
I went to the grocery store today and just got like a few things of meat, and it was like fucking $100.
Yeah.
Something that would have been like $50, I feel like, or $60 maybe.
Right.
Just a couple of years ago, even still during the Biden administration. And it's $100. It's insane.
And this stuff even starts to make normal everyday people start to actually pay attention to stuff like CPI. When CPI numbers come in and they're super high, that's one thing. But the way the consumer price index is manipulated, for example, the last thing that they took out of the basket, it's a basket of goods that they use to rate the overall inflation rate of the average American consumer. And the most recent thing that they took out of the CPI is coffee, which is the most consumed beverage in the United States of America. Yep. Almost every American adult consumes coffee or has consumed coffee. At the very least, they know how much a cup of coffee costs. It's a common vernacular thing in American culture. They no longer think it's relevant to the American experience, so they're no longer counting coffee prices in inflation, just like they don't count gasoline in inflation, because we don't need that.
There was something else just like the other day, not just coffee. They just took something else away from the. Let me see if I can find this. Because another thing that just like skyrocketed, they just took it out.
Yeah. So, but it's getting Americans to realize that they just cherry pick these things. They're like, well, when you consider the price of pudding, it's not that bad. It's only 10% up.
Coffee is way up.
Yeah.
Insane. Loaded Gun Coffee. Get your coffee from those guys. What else are we going to cover tonight? Gosh, it's already 11:10. We got some.
Biden is continuing Trump's China tariffs.
Oh yeah.
And after stating that they were quote unquote abusive, when Trump passed them back in 2019, Biden gave this big speech about how abusive Trump's trade policies are, and now Biden has doubled down and continued Trump's policy. Like, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's 100. He's doing the 100% tariff on EVs and 50% on solar panels and a bunch on steel and on semiconductors.
That is interesting, especially because when you look back at what happened with Trump doing his China trade war stuff, tariff war, the day they signed that, I think, was it phase 2 of the tariffs, was the day that the first allegedly COVID patient came off the plane from China. Like, came from China, all these things, whatever. People have speculated. I think I myself have speculated even that was like part of why COVID was released. It was a China thing. My viewpoint may have switched on that aspect.
Story.
But I'm just curious, like what has been the reaction from the mainstream media or even China to these tariffs towards Biden? We probably haven't seen anything yet.
Well, China doesn't like them. I know that. But I haven't seen. I saw something where they were calling it like Biden passes Trump tariffs or Biden inherits Trump policy or.
Well, here's
Biden. Okay, here it is. Washington Examiner. Biden just put Trump's trade policies into overdrive.
Yeah. So it's perfect. Awesome. In terms of that, the question you just asked, John, what's China's response? I think this is part of the switch theory I talk about. I think that this is like macro nation on nation kayfabe, where what's happening is it's increasing two concepts that we've talked about a lot on this show: onshoring and friendshoring, which is a clever new word the media is using. But as an example of this, one of the items I've been looking at today, if you want to share my screen here, is Putin's visiting China this week. And part of this is from oilprice.com, and they're all about international energy narratives and all of that. But one of the little tidbits here is right here. So in the wake of Ukraine sanctions from the West on Ukraine, tariffs on China, etc., trade between China and Russia has reached a record $240 billion in 2023, a 26% increase from the previous year.
Jeez.
So if you, on a surface level narrative, this is just more Biden is driving economic policy that is resulting in increasing multipolarity. The irony is Donald Trump, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin are highly in favor of multipolarity. But if you're China, if you're Trump, if you're Xi, you need to basically tell your people that, hey, look at these guys. They're waging a trade war against us. But what I think it's done is it's provided cover. Biden administration gets all the narrative damage, and it's providing cover for them to reorganize their economies, which results in some short-term pain, right? So China can't just immediately swivel from basically dominating U.S. production to replacing all of those revenue streams by going to Russia and going to Australia and and onshoring, which China is increasingly onshoring their own production. It requires a transition phase. And these leaders, including Trump, get to blame each other and be like, look, they're pulling all their production back onshore, so we've got to do the same thing. So it's going to be a little painful for a while. But as Trump says in the famous clip, we're kind of in an administration right now, but he doesn't want the results. I think the results he's talking about, the biggest results he's talking about, is economic. It's part of this transition period. For example, China is less and less reliant on Tesla for their EVs. They've got BYD, which is hugely growing in the space. They've got their Tesla competitor. And it's being framed as this war between China and the US, but really what it is Xi saying, yeah, I'd rather Chinese EVs be Chinese EVs. So we're going to build up our own version of Tesla. And that's good. It's good for them. It's good for us.
Interesting. I had nothing to add to that. So, Kyle, anything?
Fine.
No. It affects about we're talking about $18 billion worth of imports.
Oh, that's
how much would be affected is 18 billion, supposedly.
Okay.
Well, whatever. We just send it to Ukraine anyway.
Yeah, and the DoD loses it anyway. So.
Yeah, do we even want to get into that stuff?
I mean,
we could. It's a pretty damn interesting one. We might as well. Let's end with that one.
Okay.
Do you want to pull that up? No, I got here. Here we go. It's this story, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ukrainian Corruption Center reports northern border defense funds were diverted to fake companies, letting Russians walk right across border in new Kharkiv offensive. And this is similar to this story. Russia is about to overrun Ukraine's defenses. Why are there no peace negotiations? But do you want to summarize it, Brittany Bright?
Well, what stood out to me with this one is the idea that you can read this either way. Either this article is correct. The relevant point is down here. It says, in March, the Government Accountability Office reported on the lack of oversight on funds going to Ukraine during the war. GAO found in its report from March that the Defense Department is lacking in its ability to provide oversight on the resources being sent to Ukraine in the war. The GAO reported, quote, DoD does not have quality data to track delivery of defense articles to Ukraine. DoD guidance on PDA does not clearly define at what point in the delivery process defense articles should be recorded as delivered or provide clear instructions for how DoD service branches are to confirm delivery. So this is all against the backdrop of what kind of went mimetic with this article was it's alleged that a lot of the money that's being sent over to Ukraine is basically going into literally what they're calling fake companies in Ukraine, i.e. NGOs that are off record, that are not official, Ukrainian oligarchs, Ukrainian politicians. That's the narrative. So I approach this bicamerally and say, if this report is accurate, then it should infuriate the American people that the billions that are being sent over there are not being accounted for properly by the DoD, and therefore they're ending up in the hands of who knows who. If it's not true, which I kind of think it might not be true, I read this as the Government Accountability Office maybe getting responses from the Department of Defense or not getting responses from them. When they're asking where is this funding going, the DoD is not answering them, or they're saying we don't have the data to track that. Now, my belief is that the DoD has the data to track where defense money is going to a foreign war like this. And on this show, especially last year, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the tracking of funds that we know the DoD is doing over there, right? So This made me think devolution. This made me think narratively, Congress is passing all of these bills to send U.S. money over to Ukraine. But the DoD is responsible for auditing where that money's going. And I think we're getting it back, or it's not all going over there. But they're not going to reveal that because these narratives are so damaging to the Biden administration. Because again, Ukraine is claiming that they're not getting this money. And then the West is claiming that they don't know where the money's going either. So somebody's lying here. And again, either way, it's good.
I think something's afoot here that is a little bit beyond our understanding. And the reason I say that is because you have this right here, this report and this story, the same week that Blinken is in Kiev, meeting with Zelensky and talking about, kind of indicating a change in U.S. policy, kicking that door open for Ukraine to hit Russian targets in Russia. And then at the same time, Robert Storch, the DoD IG, is in D.C. meeting with Ukrainian parliament officials at the DoD IG headquarters in D.C. about the funds and the equipment going to Ukraine from DoD. So it seems to me there's things happening all of this same week around the same subject. And I think it indicates a shift. Like, it's kind of like finger pointing in a way, Like maybe GAO is pointing at DOD and DODIG is getting ready to point at Ukraine and Ukraine's getting ready to point at the US. I don't know, but there's something else going on here that we can't quite perceive from where we're at.
It's interesting the delegation is coming here because I feel like if you're the OIG and you're going to audit the books, like you're going to want to go there because
he has gone there recently.
Yeah, and I know he's been coming out with reports, but it's just weird, this whole thing. And I'd be curious, like these NGOs that are allegedly getting this money, and you know it's missing or whatever. How much of that money, of our taxpayer dollars, that we're sending overseas, that we're being told we have to send to fight this war, are actually being funneled through these NGOs back to the United States, to the pockets of the people in office currently, or funding campaigns or election shit or whatever. How much of that is coming back here to these corrupt politicians?
And that's why I was thinking devolution, not just in the sense of maybe the money is not going over there, but that's an even better scenario if a huge part of all of this is exposure, right? Imagine the backlash in Normieville if the DOD and the OIG has been auditing, they know exactly where all this money's going. And they're just saying, well, the Biden administration and Congress are passing these. Once it goes over there, they're correct that they don't have control over that money. I don't believe that they don't know where it's going, but they don't have control over where it goes once it's released into the custody of the Ukrainian government. But imagine the narrative backlash when that's revealed, right? If they tally up all this money and they say, yeah, we sent X number of tens of billions over to Ukraine, and you know how many Bugattis you bought for Ukrainian oligarchs, and then to John's point, American politicians.
Yeah.
Yep.
How much of that money came back here? So they're letting it. They're watching it come back.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
So I just felt like maybe that's why they're getting silence in the DOD, because the DOD is like, oh, we know where it is. But we'll let you know.
But the GAO is a different agency, obviously.
Yeah,
but
I kind of think
they're getting the silence from the DOD.
Yeah, they're out of the loop.
Yeah,
so they're like, there's a problem here.
Yeah. So both of them might be right. The GAO is probably right, but maybe the DOD has a reason for not providing that data. Maybe that data has to do with U.S. national security and ongoing investigations, OIG investigations.
Yeah. It's interesting, something to keep our eyes on, because I feel like at some point, that's like one of those breaking points. Like they've been harping this funding of this war and the importance of it for so long. That could be another thing, especially with the economy on the brink, like the economy getting worse and worse and worse, knowing that our tax dollars are going over there and then finding out that like they're not actually spending this money on the war. They're spending it on bullshit and our own politicians. That could be something that pisses off a lot of people, wakes a lot of people up. But
which, by the way, speaking of the Substack, if you guys want some recent features that are all about how that works with these this money laundering operations from the U.S. government, Joe Lang has been doing a bunch of articles on that. Just not only what's going on right now. Yeah, but he's been doing all these deep dives into Iran-Contra, paying this thread all the way through. So that's been a great series.
Yeah, he's very talented. We got to get him to a GART one of these days. But BB, should we go through some of those boosts?
Yes.
Wait. Before we do that, real quick, Kyle, you've been covering the Manhattan case.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say?
Trump appealed the gag order to the Manhattan or the New York High Court. And he's not actually appealing that it's unconstitutional. He's saying that like they're attacking him and he's not allowed to respond. And it's in what did he say? It's that specifically according to the court papers, Trump challenges restrictions on his ability to comment about Matthew Colangelo, the guy who was at Biden Justice Department, but who's now in the Manhattan DA's office, and Merchant's daughter receiving money from Joe Biden and Democrats. So he's not like saying this whole thing is unconstitutional, violates First Amendment, and all needs to be gone. He's talking about their filing talks about these specific restrictions that are limiting him in his ability to campaign for office, basically, because this is all political stuff. So that's going on. The prosecution is, that's going on outside the courtroom. In the courtroom, the prosecution is about done with their case in chief. And Michael Cohen was up earlier this week. And surprisingly, he was very balanced and mild-mannered, which is completely not characteristic at all of Michael Cohen.
But he perjured himself, didn't he? Again.
But he definitely lied. And
play that clip.
Yeah, you want to play this clip? Well, yeah. Before we play the clip, let me say that on cross, when Cohen was crossed, that's where it left off, I believe, on Tuesday. The Blanche might have gone too far. Some people are saying, like, he was pretty aggressive with his cross-examination of Cohen, and it kind of leaves you wondering how the jury reads that. Did they pick up more on Cohen being not a trustworthy witness, or were they distracted by how hard Blanche was going after him and kind of the arguing back and forth? Like, you got the counsel and the witness basically fighting each other in a way. They're sparring. But it seems like it's going okay, because Cohen really didn't knock it out of the park, and Stormy Daniels didn't do that well before him, and none of the candidates none of the witnesses really have. And Bragg hasn't really spelled out the crime. Like, Bragg really hasn't spelled out the crime here and what actually are the elements of the crime and how Trump violated them. So the case isn't going well for Bragg, and he's at the end of it. He's about to shut down and be done with his case in chief and turn it over to the defense. And we had this clip from earlier this week. This is you have it already. Sorry. We're both clicking the same thing. Yeah. So this is a congressman talking, Stube, but the guy he's talking to is Robert Costello, who's the attorney for Waltine Nada in the Docs case, and is the former attorney of Rudy Giuliani and the former attorney of Michael Cohen. And here's what he had to say about Michael Cohen.
Through further cross-examination, Cohen told me that he knew there was money missing from the Trump inauguration.
I see where you are now. Thank you.
Okay. And then on the next page, into that first paragraph, Cohen decided that while he didn't believe the allegation of the Stormy Daniels story, that he thought the story would be embarrassing for Trump and especially for Melania, so he decided he would take care of it himself.
Absolutely. And that is contrary to what this guy testified to in court in New York yesterday.
Well, and what's not being talked about is your next paragraph, like the reason and his motivation for that. So if you could just kind of walk through that for the committee.
Yeah, obviously, when we started to talk about the NDAs, and this is the very first meeting at the Regency Hotel, when, by the way, Rudy Giuliani was not involved in representing Donald Trump at that time. Cohen testified that it was a conspiracy between Giuliani and Costello as of this date. Totally false. In any event, he also said that he didn't discuss the Stormy Daniels matter with us, and he certainly did. I specifically asked him, because he kept on going back saying, I can't believe they're trying to put me in jail for these NDAs. So I said, Michael, tell me about the NDA. Tell me about Stormy Daniels. What did you do? He said, I got a call from a lawyer representing Stormy Daniels who represented that she was going to testify that Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen said, I didn't believe the allegation, but I knew that such an allegation would be terribly embarrassing. He said it would be embarrassing. He focused on Melania Trump. He said, I didn't want to embarrass Melania Trump. He said, that's why I decided to take care of this on my own. Right. I went back to that several times. You did this on your own? On my own. Did Donald Trump have anything to do with it? No. Did you get the money from Donald Trump? No. From any of his organizations? No. From anybody connected to Donald Trump? No. Where did you get the money? I took out a HELOC loan against my property. I said, why would you do that? He said, I didn't want anybody to know where I got this money. I didn't want Melania to know. I didn't want my own wife to know, because she's in charge, he said, of the Cohen family finances. He said, if she saw money coming out of my account, she'd ask me 100 questions, and I didn't want to answer any of them. It was clear after talking to him for several days after that, whenever we talked on the phone or in my office, that he kept on bringing up the subject that he felt he was betrayed by not being brought down to Washington, D.C. This guy thought, he said to me, that he should have been Attorney General of the United States, or at least the chief assistant to the president. Ludicrous, but that's what he thought. And he was very angry about that. He wanted to do something to put himself back into the inner circle of Donald Trump. That's why he took care of this on his own. There had to be a motivation. Michael Cohen is always working for things that benefit himself. And that's what he was doing here. That's completely different to what he said that he told the grand jury. That's completely different to what he's testifying to in New York. Nobody has heard this side of the equation.
Right.
So assuming that, like putting aside any like kayfabe theory or anything, just like taking plain face value, what Costello says makes perfect sense. And it makes perfect sense in light of other things we learned at the trial already, such as that Keith Davidson and other people involved in this, Stormy Daniels' manager, for one, had run this exact same extortion scheme on other people. Schwarzenegger, Charlie Sheen, Hulk Hogan. You have somebody who's going to make claims of some kind of sexual allegation. You go to them, you buy the story up, and you buy the rights to the story, and the attorney gets money, the person who's going to make the claim gets money, and the celebrity who's targeted gets away without being embarrassed, and the story doesn't go public, right? So it sounds like this exact same type of extortion scheme was being set up on Trump using Stormy Daniels and then Karen McDougal before her, and then Michael Cohen, just like David Pecker. David Pecker bought the Karen McDougal story because, hey, it's an investment. If Donald Trump becomes president, I can use this story as leverage. And I also helped getting him elected, and I want him to get elected because I want to do special interviews with him once he's president. It's David Pecker looking out for David Pecker. It's an investment. And same thing here, Cohen, he is looking for a way to ingratiate himself and get himself deeper into Trump's circle as Trump goes to DC. So this extortion thing comes up. Cohen buys into the extortion plot to protect Trump, thinking that he's going to get a big payoff from Trump, and he doesn't get it. So now he switched it to Trump was supposed to pay him back and didn't. Trump's a liar and a crook and screwed Michael Cohen over. But really, it was Cohen taking $150,000 gamble on Trump's going to put me in his cabinet. I'm going to protect him right now and bring this up later about how I saved his ass in the final month of the campaign in 2016. It makes so much sense, like just human motivations, what the incentives are, like things we've learned from each person, what they've testified to in the course of the trial. What Costello says makes perfect sense. I do have other theories, but what he says makes perfect sense. And I can totally see that being the case.
This is probably the only case against Trump that we're going to see pre-election, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
And it's completely like fallen on its face. Am I like,
oh, it's a circus.
Yeah. There's nothing here. There's no there. Who knows? They might convict him. Trump's basically like begging to be put in jail by breaking his gag order. He wants the judge to put him in jail. But they're not going to get him. He's not going to lose this case on appeal in any scenario. Like they've got nothing on Trump, but it's just crazy to see this stuff play out. To me, this almost feels like a rerun of sometime during Trump's administration when Cohen was testifying before Congress, the Russiagate stuff, right?
Yeah, it should feel like a rerun because we've been here so many times with the same story, same players over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't even watched the trial. It's fun to watch Twitter about the trial. You've been reading the transcripts of the trial.
Yeah, and that's fun too. I'm reading the Stormy Daniels part right now. That episode, I'm recording it right now. That episode comes out on Friday. But that's interesting. I hope Green Star doesn't watch any of those episodes.
Why? Does she go into like the sex part?
Yeah.
Okay, give us a little preview.
She goes a little. No.
Okay, give us a large preview.
No, that's what she said.
Come on.
No, but she.
What?
No.
Is it that bad?
No, I haven't gotten that. I haven't gotten that deep into it. I'm just getting started.
You pervert.
Jimmy's rustling over there.
Dude, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Hope Hicks, by the way, was really awesome on the stand. I enjoyed her stuff, and you get lots of interesting insights, like that David Pecker, I think it was, introduced Donald Trump to RFK Jr. No, to JFK Jr. And then there was a story about Michael Jackson, I want to say, and then you have like the Wonderland thing, or the Alice in Wonderland thing. And then there was a point made, Stormy Daniels made this point about a black and white checkered floor in the entryway to Trump's hotel, his suite where she first met him. And they were emphasizing the checkered floor. And then they talked about the conversation they had, Stormy and Trump, when they first met. She said they talked for 2 hours about the business of the porn industry and directing adult films. And she liked it because Trump was like actually interested in the business side of it instead of just talking about all the scandalous things and salacious stuff, right? But then after her first test, like block of testimony before they take their break, the judge, when they get done, scolds Trump for for making ugly faces and cussing while Stormy was on the stand. So like apparently Trump was over there like muttering profanities to himself and giving her ugly looks while she was telling these stories, and so the judge said it was contemptuous.
Are you kidding me?
No.
That's fine.
I really want you to like give us a couple sentences about the Stormy.
Dude, I don't know if that's appropriate for this show.
Are you kidding me?
It's appropriate for Just Human After Dark, though.
Yeah, jeez. I'm on page. Okay, let me see. I'm on page 102 of 331 from that day.
Give us something, man.
No. I'm not to that part yet. I'm not to the most like salacious part yet. I'm just like they're still in the hotel room before dinner.
Just foreplay.
And it's still the foreplay section where they're having conversations and whatnot.
Well, skip ahead. Give us something.
You're asking me to find something in the transcript I haven't gotten to yet. I don't know where it is.
Just
make
search
like
for,
she did.
What you want?
Search for penis or something and see what happens.
Oh my god.
What page did I say it was on? 103, 104. Okay. I will actually search this transcript for penis.
Here, let's say Lumpy and Gingy in the chat, I think, might be pulling this from the transcript. Trump tried to stick it in and said, "Watch out, I'm huge, and here comes the Trump train." Have you tried to search for that?
I do not see that come up. No,
when I search
when I search the word "stick," that does not come up.
Well, why were you like so like scared to say what it's about?
Well, he hasn't gotten to the actual wording of it yet, so he doesn't know how she words any of it.
Yeah. What is this restraining order? I thought there was some kinky stuff. So
search kinky.
Incited the erection.
I'll search that too. Negative.
Okay, so it's really not as bad as you were making it seem.
No, I haven't gotten there yet. I don't think they're going to be that graphic. There was discussion before it where like they want to make it more graphic. The prosecution does, and Trump's team, of course, wants to limit that. But they want her to. What did they say? They told the judge, the prosecution did, this is Stormy's moment to tell her story the way she would have told it in 2016 if she hadn't accepted the hush money. That's what they want it to be, like an expose, like a media expose from the stand. And the judge was like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to let that happen."
The judge wasn't going to let it happen?
No, he was like, "No, we don't need to get into anything emotional. Just the facts of what happened. There doesn't need to be descriptions of the intercourse, just the intercourse happened." She talks about missionary position. I see that. And she describes the sex acts. She just doesn't do it in a very graphic way.
Okay, so somebody in the chat just brought this up that I just checked, and it's true. I'll share my screen here. Stormy Daniels appeared in the 2007 show Dirt.
That's right.
In which she plays a person who sets up an NBA player as part of a salacious allegations. Lucy Spiller is the ambitious, ruthless, cynical, scheming editor of two Hollywood tabloid magazines, Dirt and Now, who who's masterful at using threats and manipulation to jig up dirt on celebrities. So apparently Stormy Daniels is one such example in the show of setting up an NBA player in exactly the manner in which Donald Trump is being accused here.
Yep. What was the year of that film?
2007.
2006 is when they met on the golf course.
Interesting. Probably when she was filming that thing.
Possibly.
Damn. Crazy. All right.
That was the rehearsal.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
Vagina.
maybe we should get to the boosts.
All right, we got some from last week. Rocky Top Apologist sent $5 over and said, if the reveal happens before the next show, will you still read the boosts? And I don't know what reveal that was in reference to.
Did we ask him to put something in the boost?
I don't
ask
know.
him to answer a question.
John Q. Adams on True Social sent $17 over, said, John, no, if one chamber of Congress passes a bill, the other one should not be required to take it up. That's the beauty and the whole point of the Constitution. It makes it very hard for government to get things done. Founders, in their God-given wisdom, created the system where the instrument of oppression would run into every conceivable roadblock to implementing oppression. Every law passed is a restriction on human activity. Making it harder to pass laws is a good thing. BB and Kyle, have you ever noticed how F1 cars have a similar design to hammerhead sharks?
The first part was a good point. The second part, I hate you for bringing up F1.
Yeah, it is aerodynamic. Pandorax B, $25. Love DPH, both versions. I would rumble rant, but I've been muted for a really long time, since before the first start. I'd love to join the chat, but can't. I don't know why I was muted to begin with. Love all of Badlands anyway.
Okay, guys, if you get muted, tag me on Twitter with your Rumble username and tell me.
Tag.
Okay, you guys are both fags. Tag me on Twitter, and I'll do my best to get you back on.
And I'll block you there too.
And then I'll block.
I want to make sure you're on my ban list everywhere.
No, but for real, somebody just tagged me out. I forgot to unmute him, but I will once I figure out who it was again.
Lionheart, who's always supporting us, sent $50 over. Good evening, gentlemen. Thoroughly enjoyed that trip down memory lane last week when you mini dove into the Trump New Jersey casino years. In hindsight, so much of it makes sense when at the time it was so incredibly baffling why the successful businessman could make such a mess of things. In reality, there was a mission behind the madness. The city of Atlantic City is and always has been a clown show, and what do you get when you're forced to pin your entire livelihood to an industry of chance, boom, and bust?
Also, everybody, make sure you hit
you.
the thumbs up. We appreciate the thumbs up if you wouldn't mind doing us that favor.
Lil Shit in Minneapolis, $25. It's been a while since I've sent a boost, but just had to after listening to last Wednesday's Devolution Power Hour with Chris Paul, BB, and Just Human the following morning. You took that show in so many different entertaining directions. But my favorite was when you were talking about Mark Zuckerberg being featured at UFC events recently. That day, Thursday, April 24th, Meta tanked 10%. How entertaining. All of this makes one think something has to be going on behind the scenes. We can only hope that some of these strings have been cut. Thank you for all you do.
You see that? Was that picture of Zuckerberg and Gates real? Did you guys see that?
Is this a new one?
I don't know. I just saw it the other
I'll
day.
grab the next one. But thank you. Lee Wall for all, $25. When a garden of heroes becomes a reality, I'm confident that you, my young patriots, will have an honorable place to bring your grandchildren. Thanks to you, we have a place to call home. Pray for the awakening and demand the reckoning, where divine justice prevails. That includes a ball gag, straitjacket, and leg irons, and VP seat on flight to Gitmo for all traders. Millstones and hemp to be included. Stay frosty with wind at your back. Stay safe and keep the faith. Thank you. That's a lot of stuff we got to package up.
Yeah.
I didn't see this. Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. That looks fake. That's weird.
Yeah.
Those looks
fake.
like a. Yeah, I don't know.
That must be. Yeah. That's weird.
The size of
Well,
their shoes, like in their heads, like it doesn't fit.
Yeah. John Q. Adams sent another 17 over. You gentlemen and scholars, not John, have taught me well. So I was surprised to not see you make the narrative versus actual connections with the anti-Semitism bill. Narrative is devastating in that it is highlighting what they want to do and have been doing, albeit more subversively. This brings it out into the light. Everyone can see clearly the agenda now. Actual is the Senate is not even likely to take it up, let alone pass it. If the Senate does pass the bill and Pedo Pete signs it, it will be challenged in the courts and SCOTUS will rule it unconstitutional. War's getting good. Sounds like all the stuff we've been saying.
A little bit.
I disavow the part where he.
Well, we do say that too. Lionheart sent another 25 over and said, "Yup, still me. In other news, I've been slowly red pilling my wife for the past couple months at her request, not against her will. So I have her watching LT's show each time it comes out." LT's. Thanks to you guys. Okay. Thanks to you guys, I'm able to explain in easy detail her questions and concerns, particularly this past week when she was very frantic over the anti-Israel bill. I played her the 10-minute clip of you guys explaining it. Perfect. Thank you for that. She hears me listening to you guys frequently and always asks about all of you, but I lovingly told her she isn't quite ready for you guys yet.
Oh, she's ready.
She might be ready.
She's ready now. Just have her tune in for the Stormy Daniels part.
Yep.
She's ready.
The Badlands train.
Yep. Trump train. Badlands train.
Yeah. And Lionheart again, $25. Good evening, gentlemen. Quick note, you forgot to read Boost last week's show. Also, John and Zach did not read Boost for episode 79 or 81. Just wanted to make you aware. I did remind the fellas of this, Lionheart. We are trying to get in the habit of this. The good thing with the Boosts is that they are saved and backdated. So that's why we're going through them tonight.
Can I explain here? There was a brief period of time where it was maybe like a day or two where Stripe sent us an email. They're like, hey, we are pausing your payouts for the boosts or for whatever your Stripes. They go through, the boosts go through Stripe. We're like, we're pausing these because we need to know what they're about. And so you need to respond. So like, well, shit, they're going to shut us down. And so we paused the boost for a second because we didn't want any more funds withheld. And so we didn't read anything either. We didn't promote it. And then we told them like, yeah, these are basically like our YouTube super chats. And then the very next day, they instantly like turn them back on. So we missed a couple of days, but we're back now.
Yeah.
So apologies.
That was cool of Stripe.
And surprising of Stripe.
Yeah.
Stripe also recently backed off immediately when they were putting people's personal data into receipts and stuff, and they were challenged on that and immediately took it back. So that was good to see.
Yep.
That's all the boosts we got. We're caught up on boosts. John, do you have the rants?
I do. So first we got secrets, and I'm not sure how I feel about this one, but I'm going to read it anyway. Hello, Defected Power Hour. Very nice. Also Mohap. It was the Defected Power Hour that I didn't like. By the way, guys, there is some whispers that the Saturday Power Hour crew, Patrick and Chris, are going to be starting their own show here soon. So they're also calling it Defected. So you guys are going to have some competition.
Show ever.
Well, that'll be pretty good. So stay tuned. Nevada Runner, God bless. Thank you. 1027 JS says, looking forward to tonight's show. Thank you, Joe. Kitsko, lost sleep is never found. Ain't that the fucking truth?
True.
Jeez. Okay, we have a
I will have a short lifespan.
Noted MAGA extremist Ash 1776 says, I agree with BB on the election. This is disturbing, and I need to reevaluate my life. I'm scared, John.
John gets scared when he agrees with me too.
I don't know what I don't remember what we were talking about.
But it was probably incredible.
Yeah. I don't get scared when I agree with you because I never do. I just make it a point not to.
True.
But technically, you agree with everybody on everything.
And disagree at the same time.
And disagree at the same time.
Bicameral. I'm beginning to play with the theory that being on a stream during a Bruins game makes them win.
Did they win tonight?
They won last night.
Okay.
They play again Friday night.
Okay.
But I probably won't be streaming. I'm supposed to be at dinner.
What about the Liberty Den?
My father-in-law's going to be in town.
From Canada?
Yep.
Why do you still invite him? He's Canadian.
He just said he was coming. He's like, I'm going to be in your area. Okay, well, I guess we'll hang out then.
He had errands to run or something?
Yeah, errands to run in Boston. Yep.
From Canada? Okay. Interesting. Badlands Media Fan says, I'm reading the Doctrine of Lesser Magistrates. It's important for the lower civil government to disobey tyranny Encourage county to plan to do November election in direct non-compliance of federal state orders. Yeah. Thank you for the rant. Beachside says nothing can show the fraud of 2020 as well as an accurate 2024. I like that. I see where you're going, but I also would say that nothing can expose the fraud of 2020 than like showing how fraudulent 2024 would be and being like, holy shit. I wonder if it was like that in 2020. It'll be interesting, man. However it plays out,
Yeah.
Trump's going to end up inaugurated either way. Beachside says nothing. Oh, I just read that. Peachy Grits. John, I'm gutted. You had the opportunity to ask BB if he has a little red wagon. You missed it. Well,
What's
you just
that
gave me
reference
another
to?
opportunity. Your toys in the basement that are all weapons. Do you have a little red wagon?
No, that's kind of creepy. Was that like a creepy thing?
No, I think like that's a very common toy for people.
Wagons, swords, all swords, axes, knives.
He's from east of the Mississippi. They may not have wagons.
Yeah.
What
that
do
sounds
they
weird.
have?
What
I
would
gotta
you do with a
admit-
wagon?
I mean, lots of things.
You legit have no toys.
You do some yard work with a wheelbarrow.
No, you carry your
I wouldn't
toys
play with it.
around. You carry snacks, beverages, a puppy.
On the East Coast, we
kids?
carry our
another
toys.
kid. I mean,
No, none of that. Sounds like some soft.
look,
You could put your
Southern
swords
stuff.
in a wagon and carry them around.
I'm
in
always
the-
carrying my swords with me in case I'm attacked.
But what if there's multiple enemies and you need more weapons?
They're not going to wait for me to go into my wagon.
Time out. I gotta grab another weapon.
Let me get something. I have my weapons wagon.
You never know. Hey, if they had a weapons wagon in the forest during the first Lord of the Rings, maybe Boromir wouldn't have died.
How dare you bring him up his death like that?
Hey, just saying. Maybe if they had some shields or something. Just saying.
you could use the wagon as a shield. If you
That
needed
too.
to.
That too. You could fit like all four of those hobbits in that wagon. That would have made that journey a lot better for them.
He had to die in order for Aragorn to assume the mantle of leadership that he was destined to assume.
Are you sure that's why he died?
I think so.
I don't know. I
Also,
think you
he
said
was
that
kind of a dick right before he died, so that's really why he died.
he's a very weak man. But also, I don't know, whatever.
I promise that when you die in battle, I will put your body into a canoe and send you over the falls of Rauros with respect.
I would ask for nothing more. Considering if I ever die, generally, it'll probably be you that kills me.
If
If I ever die.
If I ever die,
If I ever die, generally. I've unlocked immortality,
technically
guys.
we don't know.
The only thing that can kill me is being stabbed in the back. So
Right.
Burning Bright is the most likely candidate.
I used to love the Hot Shots movies when I was a kid. I will kill you until you die from it.
Hot Shots? I don't know if I'm familiar.
Oh, they're hilarious. Charlie Sheen. It's like rip-offs, spoofs of 80s movies.
Yeah, those were funny.
You guys ever watch Basketball?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Only
You guys should do
good
that for
Canadians
Story
have ever
Hour.
done.
Oh, yeah, I know Hot Shots. That's good. That is funny. Okay, let me continue. Salt Muncher OD8, September 10th, Delta. And I think
We looked at that one.
you look at that.
Good call.
Yep. Diane6866 says, or they will send in the guy in the Biden mask. Probably talking about the debates.
Oh, for the debates.
Yep. A gate.
By God, is that Joe Biden's music?
I mean, I see so many people posting about it, and it's, oh, he definitely had facelift. It's undeniable. I was looking at this. There were stories back in like 2018 and 2019 of plastic surgeons saying, I would estimate that Joe Biden has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on plastic surgery. 2018, 2019.
I believe it.
Yep. Look it up, guys. And use the Yandex to do it. Because we are Russian sympathizers over here. A gate. E-Scrime sticks. Maybe I can challenge BB at Deadwood Guard. I don't know what that means.
Eskrima sticks.
Is that what that is?
Are you challenging me to use Eskrima sticks?
What is Eskrima sticks?
They're like Indonesian, Filipino sticks, sometimes called Kali sticks, that are used in the martial arts over there. Silat uses them. It's another style.
Just like
they're like the size of these blades, but they're how people in the Philippines train to fight with knives. There's a lot of knife combat. But again, if you are looking to challenge me, I am very well versed in Eskrima, so you're gonna get wrecked.
I would
no
like
real weapons though.
I would like to see this. I'll challenge you to it.
We'll do like a charity tournament at one point. All of the winnings are going to go to whoever wins. That's the charity that they're going to go to.
The real JJ14. Also, what has to happen here at home so that America restores its image on the global stage? You know, Trump won't let us be looked down upon like Germany post World War II. It's going to have to be huge. That's a good question. Good thought. I would say, I mean, if we can fix election fraud here, we can fix it everywhere. I think the ripple effect of that, or just exposure of the corrupt nature of most of these governments, I think that'll do it. The EVIC58, honest question since I'm old, was Putin not the evil leader of the KGB years ago? Help me understand.
I don't think he was ever the evil leader of anything. The short version of it is that he feels like he exploded onto the scene in Russia in the 90s. He was considered a shock to the Russian establishment in post-Soviet Russia, and he instituted basically an unprecedented, since the early 1900s, era of Russian prosperity, peace, and a return to Orthodox Christianity, interestingly enough, among his population. He also, his first executive orders banned the teaching, communist teachings in Russian public schools. So for the people that just on a tape recorder repeat that Russia is communist, they are literally, legally less communist than the United States. Communism is outlawed in Russia, very literally. So it's hilarious.
Dave75 says, for years I've been trying to tell people that we don't have to be besties, but Russia is not our enemy. By the way, there's no X in especially, but there are two G's. You didn't know that. The Vic58. Well, good grief. I was trying to send $10 with what ended up being a lousy $1 with my KGB question about Putin. Sorry. You never have to apologize for a Rumble rant.
Well, now you sent $11.
Yeah, but that's like an odd number. And I don't know if I like odd numbers.
But it adds up to an even number, so I'm okay with it.
Well, yeah, but we approve. Crane59, Beebs disagree. In my opinion, lots of boomers are awake. A majority of this chat probably fit the description, i.e. boomers. But outside this, boomers are part of the silent majority.
Craneop's the type of boomer that I have to clarify my boomer takes to.
You got to stop dissing the boomers, bro.
I'm like, normies feel this way. And then Craneop's like, I do not. So stop referring to yourself accidentally as a normie.
Is it, Craneop, have you confirmed if you're going to be at Deadwood yet?
I think he said he was going to be.
I hope so. Carrie Prejean says, I'll be 70 this August. I've been inundated with anti-Russian propaganda my entire life. Putin looks like one of the best statesmen / leaders at present. If you can't see that, your head is in a dark place.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Samantha321 cannot send money. Tried with another card. Any suggestions?
You
just
did.
You did.
But maybe you should try a couple more cards.
Just keep, just keep running it through.
Thank you.
Just kidding.
Jason at TGA. Fun story. Was testing an AI for work. Did not work. Got home. It worked on home desktop, laptop too. Then mother burst in yelling colorful things about my sister. Both AIs offered hamburger recipes. What?
Did an AI write this rant?
The AI is like, tell your mother to get back in the kitchen. Give her these recipes. Jason of TGA, we reached the Biden singularity when the interests of the deep state hand up his sock puppet butt align with the rest of us. Carrie Prejean says, if you want real stats on inflation, unemployment, etc., go to shadowstats.com by John Williams, not the songwriter, for accurate numbers.
That's a cool one. You can see if they were counting, gold and other assets against the current money supply. That's what they show you. US Debt Clock does it as well.
Not aware of that website. Jeannie Marie is now a monthly supporter. Thank you. And Steph Asia. Appreciate that, guys. Thank you. Jason at TJ, got it. Mr. Pecker is the fine, upstanding man, and they are behind the curve. What an unfortunate last name, Mr. Pecker. Good for him.
It's weird. In the War of Stories, you've got Mr. Pecker and the Stormy trial. You've got Wiener laptops and all kinds of stuff.
Mike Johnson's package.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of interesting phallic names. Kitsko, Trump got his biz certificates back. Not sure what that's referring to. I must have missed something.
He got his biz certificates back.
And it's biz with a Z. So that's different than regular business.
I'm not sure.
And Carrie Prejean, great show, gentlemen. Thank you. And then Salt Muncher ODA says, starting the Badlands / Lord of the Rings remake with the Hobbits in a wagon. That'd be a fun one. I mean, just like, you have to get to Mordor, but you cannot leave the wagon. That's the only rule.
Even when John says wagon, you can tell he's from Lower Canada.
Wagon.
Wagon.
Screw you guys. That's how you say it.
I was truly disgusted when I saw that he is from north of my Canadian wife. I was like, this is gross.
But I'm still American, so your wife will never be able to say that she's lived in America her whole life.
Now.
What?
She's technically American now.
Yeah. Technically.
Sounds like we can reverse that. She's more valuable to him than I am, so.
She is. I will agree with that. Hey guys, this is Starborn 01. Found this interesting. The crew of 21 has been on the ship in Baltimore for 50 days, and their phones have been seized by investigators. Article here.
Oh yeah, that's another barge smashed into a bridge today.
Yep.
Third one. So that's interesting.
That's crazy. They've been.
I think that was in Austin.
This is an interesting story. The crew has been like confined there. That would suck. I would go insane.
Yeah, what nationality was it crewed by? Was it Indian or
Sri Lankan?
Sri Lankan. Okay. Crew of Indian and Sri Lankan.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Interesting. Thank you for sending that over.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That's all I got. So since the show was very graphic at one point, Kyle just had to go there.
Yeah, disgusting, really.
Yeah, we're normally above that, but since the show's already been tainted with some graphic stuff, we're gonna end the show with the Air Titty video. So hope you guys all have a great evening, and we will see you next week. Anything else, guys?
Another just sent a couple rants in, and Melindy.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so awesome. Another 179, juxtaposing them against the West's fall of the same, exposing the American population to this could go. Oh, I missed the first one. Let me start over. Shared religion and shared values are arguably the strongest unifiers, stronger than sports. Putin has highlighted Russia's conservative Christian values in many speeches and interviews while juxtaposing them against the West's fall of the same. Exposing the American population to this could go a long way to changing a long-held negative perceptions. I think Putin is mindful of this. Then Melindy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I totally agree. Melindy, BB, barge into a bridge in Austin. LOL, 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 F+ in Texas geography.
What was I looking? Well,
It's Galveston. There's east. That's like southeast of Austin, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Fine.
Yeah, but it's on the coast. Galveston's on the coast. Austin's not on the coast.
I know. I
God,
thought maybe
BB's so stupid.
Fine. I knew Austin was not on the coast.
Not on the couch either.
Austin's not on the couch.
It's not on the couch either, yeah. This is why Fox 7 Austin reported it. So, that's my out.
slightly understandable.
It was reported from Austin about Galveston.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we'll kind of forgive you for a little bit. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Well, actually, let's start with the ARQ. I'll let you guys talk about this first.
God bless the USA.
That'll get your jimmies rustling.
Yeah.
Look, there's a lot of air cues to get pointed out that I don't think are air cues, but that's a pretty
like I
good
said,
air cue right there.
He could have just been drawing a titty. Like
he could have.
He didn't do the
Or a
tail.
bullseye,
He
John.
did like.
Why do you have to go vulgar with it?
Well, let me do it.
God bless the USA.
Hard to see what he does with that hand.
Yeah.
Could be a titty. Yep, could be an air titty. I've never heard of somebody drawing an air titty until just now, but maybe, John.
Whatever, Mr. Haviland.
I mean, besides titty, I would think bullseye. You know, like, hey, you're right on target.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's that, and then
on the titty.